Wild weekend.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Glad you didn't go. Be glad. It was a good
I'm
time.
not glad I didn't go. I was dealing with literal shit.
But hey, what a beautiful day it was today.
I know, it was gorgeous.
I mean, y'all got snow pretty good a couple weeks ago, right?
I mean, like, good for Austin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not good if you live in, like, Michigan or Boston or something like that. But I mean, we got enough to where they shut school down for a few days.
I mean, I saw you and your kid out there playing in it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they were building, the grossest looking snowman because there wasn't enough like clean snow to make like a pure white one. But yeah, it was definitely fun,
But the contrast, right? So 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 weeks
ago.
And then
now it's 75 degrees and we just finished the polar ride. You just rode up from Austin, Yeah, it was a nice day.
Possibly got a sunburn today,
Yeah, I feel like I did too.
Yeah. Sitting there, it's like, wow, February 2nd and getting sunburns in Texas.
This is what happens though. It honey dicks us.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah, and then we'll have
like
in a week we'll have another, a week or two we'll have another day where it's like 20 degrees.
Can you ever see the difference when we have days like this and your phone ringing for like people wanting? Oh shit!
Yeah, if
nice.
today wasn't Sunday, it probably would have been a lot more people like, oh man, my
We need to do this all winter, but now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm getting a lot of those calls like, hey, the weather's starting to get nicer. And I go, that's great. I literally can't fit another bike in the shop right now.
Yeah.
Just at nighttime. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to get bikes out of the shop before I
How was the party?
It wasn't bad. I mean, we had more people than I thought were going to be there. So, I mean, it was maybe like 40 or 50 people, which for I've said, I don't really throw events. So to me, that was a good turnout. We just had like some basic food. My dad smoked some like pork butts and made pulled pork sandwiches and stuff like that, and we just hung out. And
Nice. Yeah, I wish I would have been able to go to that. I had my son that weekend, and then I think Vincent's birthday party.
Yeah, it was Vincent's birthday party because I actually hit him up about doing the food. I go before I had got the stuff for my dad to smoke the meat. I was like, hey, would you be interested? And like, we'll figure out whether, I pay for it or you want to sell it or whatever. But like, I'd like to support someone who does this for a living. And he was like, I can't with my schedule, which is fine, but I'd like to do something with him in the future for sure.
Dude, Vincent's cool.
Yeah, no, he's rad.
Tacos are good. I'm actually jonesing for them right now.
Dude.
Like, I haven't had a taco, like, I haven't really, like all the good street taco places that are around here, I feel like they're inconsistent. Like one day it's like, God damn, the chicken is on point. And the next day it's like, what the hell is this? You know what I'm saying?
There are no, like we moved obviously to like the west side of Austin and there's no such thing as a street taco out there. It's, if someone has a spot with a trailer set up, it probably costs an insane amount of money and their tacos
$5
are like,
for a little street taco?
$8 for a taco. Wow. It's like $7 to $8 for a taco there. And then you can go downtown. But then you got to deal with all the stuff that comes with going downtown to get a taco. There's there's nowhere like like the last shop, there was 3 taco trucks within a 1 mile radius of the shop. So like I could, if I didn't want that place, I could go to this place. This place had better birria tacos. Like maybe I go get tacos there. But then this place had better chorizo tacos. Like maybe I'll go there to get those tacos. But nothing. There's no fast food anywhere near the shop. Whatsoever. Like I stop at a gas station. Like that's literally the only thing. There's not a.
You don't even have to go out of the neighborhood though, right?
It's the next neighborhood down. So if you exit,
so you still got to hit that main road.
Yeah. So I still hit B Caves Road. It's like I hit B Caves Road for like a mile, and then I'm in the neighborhood where the shop is. But there's a restaurant right next door. But it's like a high-end Italian restaurant, and like their pasta dishes are like $25 or $30. So. Needless to say, I don't really go there for lunch very much.
That's wild. Yeah. Every once in a while, like you'll get a restaurant like that, but they'll do like a lunch special. Yeah. But then when they're super high, they don't even open for lunch. They open at 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah. Like during the football season, I noticed them open a bunch more because they have a big back patio with live music and stuff like that. And I could hear them while I was there late setting up the shop and we're moving in, but I haven't heard them recently. I don't know if like the wintertime they close earlier or whatever, or, but it was good food. Like, don't get me wrong, their food's good, but it's like, their drinks are $12 to $20 a drink. Their pasta dishes are like $20 to $30, and it's not like, hey, I'm just gonna run next door and grab some food real quick. You're like, I don't want. You know, if I spend $40, I can go to Costco and get like enough food for the week.
I think that's why, like, I'm jonesing for some too. Superior Grill yesterday at the Polar Ride, $32. I got 3 tacos, and they were like, okay.
Yeah, that place is off the books now. We're not doing that no more.
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know. I'm excited. This year felt, I don't know. It's like this weekend was a good weekend. You know, you being here, we're talking about, obviously we're going to get into the FXR Tour 3. You kind of where your head is on your build, but it's like the year's got a good momentum feeling.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, feel like
do you feel like you?
No, I have a ton of momentum.
Yeah.
Like this is the first time I've ever been involved with something like this. Like I'm not a builder. I'm a mechanic. You know what I mean? And typically mechanics don't get opportunities to build bikes on this level. So I'm like super excited and super pumped because they're like, some really, really talented people. Like Adam is a very talented builder and fabricator. Larry, I love Larry's bikes. Jody, her and her dad have, insane pedigree and insane bikes, and so it's like all these people, and then there's some that I don't know. Like there's a couple guys I haven't met before, and there are a couple guys that I've heard of, but I haven't met.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's a fun, I think it's going to be a really good group of people.
Yeah.
I think they're still waiting on 2 more people from what I understand. There's one more builder and then the garage builder.
Yeah. Yeah. And y'all have a group chat, right? Going on? Nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun to step, because I'm going to use this to push me to step outside of what I would normally do. Like normally if I build a bike, it's like 100% about function. And then if there's time and money left over, we'll worry about some form after that. But like, I want it to work this way. I want it to break this way. I want it to this. And then the form is kind of an afterthought. Whereas
how does
now
it all look and work together?
And now it's going to be part of it. Like I'm still going to build something that you can smash miles on and enjoy, but form is going to be in the forefront of the thought during the function part. So it'll be different. We're going to do something that I've never done in a bike that I've never built before. So that'll be fun. Yeah,
it's always exciting to see what people are doing. That's the whole point of like the posts on the weekend, and people kind of, especially now, like when everybody starts posting on Friday, and people start, this is what we're planning on doing. It's like when you set the stage, right? Yeah. Then you get to follow along and see the progress in the real time, the weekly stuff. Even if there's nothing, it's still, it's exciting. When Mikey,
it also helps people see little things that they might not like. If you like were at Born Free, Texas, and you walked past all those bikes, you're not going to spend more than 10 minutes looking at them, maybe. And there might be little details that you would never see, but if you get to follow along every week and they're like, hey, I took this bracket, but I cut this and flipped it and then mounted it upside down to do this specific thing and get this look, and then you can see all that when you're there. It makes it way more enjoyable to look at the bikes when you've seen the work that goes into it, and you can understand it, like, oh wow, I saw when he built this, and like I saw what he did for this, or I saw how he modified this to make it work. And
I mean, the craziest one from last year, there was a lot of badass bikes, obviously, but when Nine Finger Mike, when he started his build like in June or July, and he built the frame to be narrower, like not lengthwise but widthwise. It's like when you walk up to it, you notice it. Like, man, there's something off here. Yeah, like I don't know what it is, but I'm drawn to it. And then when you find out, it's that little degree of it being off. Yeah, it's kind of like if you take someone's like eye, like a picture of them, and you just like even the smart. Like on Photoshop, you just move it over just a little bit, make it a little bit wider. Yeah. Like I know who you are, but something is just it's like fucking with my idea of what this is. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, I mean that was one of those bikes that like if you just look at it, you go, okay, cool. Like it's a chopper FXR, but then you go back and you watch all of his posts from the year and you're like, oh wow. Like this isn't just like I cut it and moved it. He, did a bunch of different stuff and to get it to look that way that the average person, if they've never had an FXR apart, they might not even realize that it's been narrowed a little bit. You know what I mean? They'll walk past, be like, "Oh, cool," and then,
but it's tasteful, right? Like that's what
it is. It's very that's it's not like overstated or gaudy or anything.
I feel like the idea of like the form of a bike is based on like you have to. Sometimes I think the problem with maybe the performance bike scene is that it is basically function over form.
Yeah.
But in the function, you have a really badass swing arm, really nice shocks, really nice things, but nothing is really designed off of each other. Yeah. It's like you added this and added this. And I'm not trying to like downplay it like it's just some catalog bike, whatever. But the thing is that like these parts are all coming together and you're kind of like building a bike through these different entities that make things, right?
And the hard part is that it, in the chopper, that's the wrong word, but in like the customized world or whatever, a lot of people make their own parts, but you can't make like, unless you're super smart and have a CNC machine and, all sorts of programs, you can't make a performance shock. You can't make a performance swing arm. You can make a cool looking swing arm.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to have something that is lighter, but more rigid than a factory swing arm, unless you're a mechanical engineer or a structural engineer and you have all these programs and all these machines, you can't just go and like grinder, welder, and then make it.
That was what was interesting when Harley built their race bikes and then you saw how they did their swing arm.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, like of all the things that we've been doing on these bikes, like that's like someone coming into it with a different idea of how to build it.
Well, I mean, what they basically did was just take a sport bike swing arm and make it fit. Because if you look at how they shifted where their axle is in relation to their pivot point and everything else, like it's what, like BMW S1000RRs and things have, where the axle's in a different location in relation to the rest of the swing arm to get some extra ground clearance and have the axle movement, in tightening and loosening the chain in a certain angle compared to, where it would be if you just took a flat line and moved it down.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, they have like the swing arm has like integrated chain tensioners.
Yeah. Which Alloy Art just came out with.
They did?
Yeah. They came out with chain tensioners that bolt on to your swing arm mounts for it's chain and belt. So that way you can actually run a belt on taller shocks. Cause like that was the thing we always told people is like, if you go 14 or up on a belt on like a bagger or a dyno, like you have to go chain because belts don't like to be run loose. You'll rip teeth out, you can ask Steve Chamberlain about that. On every bike that he's had a belt on, he lifts them and then they rip teeth out because you have to run them. You can't get too tight during the suspension travel. So you have to run them loose. So they've got, a block that bolts on with like a Delrin or some sort of wheel that has a certain, I'm assuming they did a bunch of research to figure out what sort of tension they needed on that spring, but it actually fits with a chain or a belt so that way you don't have to upgrade to a chain when you're doing a taller suspension. Yeah.
So. I'll be honest with you. My travel bikes, I prefer having a belt.
It's a lot simpler. Like I tell, like, I talk more people out of doing chains than I put on. And I go, listen, I have a chain on every single one of my bikes. So like, don't hear this as I'm telling you don't do it, but it requires more maintenance. Some people are like, oh, you just put an O-ring chain on and run it until it breaks. Okay, that's great, but that's not what I like to do. It's not going to
last that long if you do it that way.
I go, it requires more maintenance. You got to clean it. You got to lube it. It's noisier. Yeah. There are some performance benefits, but it does take more work. You can't just jump on it and go I've seen belts last for 100,000 miles.
Yeah. I've never had to change a belt.
All you do is just when you change a tire, make sure your belt tension's good, and then that's it.
Yeah.
It's never like, oh, the sprocket's getting 8, so we need to go ahead and do new sprockets every 25,000 miles or 30,000 miles or whatever it is, and the belts. There's a reason they went to belts from chains, and that's because it is a lot more maintenance friendly, a lot easier. It's quieter, less messy, you know, because that's the other thing too, is you do a chain, every time you lube it, you have some nice black spots all over your bike from that fresh lube. So
that's one thing I've never liked chain guards, but that's one thing now that I think I want to start being more like, I wouldn't mind making one for the FXR.
Yeah.
And I'm already like on the chopper. I'm definitely going to put a chain guard on that because with it having a narrow fender, it literally just be throwing chain lube on my back.
Yeah.
Or water if it's getting wet or whatever the fuck. So
yeah, I've been putting them. I put them on the blue Softail. I put them on the red FXR. I don't have one on the orange one yet. I have one in a box. I just haven't had the chance to put it on.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is that the factory chain guard is set up for a belt. It's really a belt guard, and the belt has a different pulley diameter.
Yep.
So it doesn't fit right with the chain. You know, like the rear pulley's supposed to be this big. It's supposed to be a 66 tooth or a 65 tooth or a 70 tooth or whatever the bike is. But then you go down to a 48 and you got this little tiny sprocket inside this big radius. So it's like you almost need to.
aesthetically, it starts to look weird.
It
still works,
and the angle is off too now because the front, you know, your front sprocket's only 24 to 26 versus a 32 stock.
Yeah.
So it's not going to the same diameter here. So it's starting at a lower diameter here and it's going to a lower diameter here. And so it doesn't follow the line of the chain. Like it typically sits at an off angle in relation to the chain.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. I'm pretty, you know, I really think I want one of those new lowrider STs, like the high output one. I was already, I mean, Devin can tell you, I was already like,
Jones.
like, there's a Jacob, right? Yeah. Jacob's bike at Strokers a couple weeks back. I was like, man, I want to build another one and ride it. And I want to have it for like my main bike to just travel on. But man, that new motor, have you fucked with any of those new ones much yet?
I haven't yet. No one has brought in the new water cooled heads, you know, or whatever, the center cooled or whatever they're called. But I've seen a lot of cool products from some companies that are now retrofitting. It's like you can take a set of heads off of a new lowrider that are the center cooled with the oval port or the center, what is it called? Center flow or whatever it is. The oval port Milwaukee 8 heads, and you can retrofit them on to the older Milwaukee 8s, and you get the benefits of the new heads, but you don't have to buy a whole new bike. So
I didn't know they went water cooled on the new lowrider ST.
I don't think those are water.
Yeah, I don't think they did.
No, but they're called center flow heads or something. You know, they have the oval intake ports. There's a word for it that I'm just escaping my head right now. But the from what I understand, the new Softails are still not water cooled.
Yeah,
but all the baggers are now. So.
Nice. Yeah, it's happening.
I mean, it makes sense from like. I think they're doing it wrong. You know, I think if they were gonna do it and they actually like water cooled,
it's either like rip the Band-Aid off or you know, like just slowly. And I think maybe you're getting at, I'm sorry to cut you off with that, but it's like if they were to just one day, the new models were all like how Indian did, where it was like completely water cooled on the Challenger.
Yeah.
Like to just do that in one stroke of this is this year's models. That might have been like a very hard acceptance.
Yeah, but so then you like in my mind, what you do is you break it into different bikes. You don't kill the air cooled in one year.
Yeah.
You go, here's our air cooled lineup, and you can get them in like the basic bikes, like a Road King, Road Glide Standard, Electra Glide Standard, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then this is our new ST line, our street touring line. That has actual water-cooled cylinders and heads, not just the exhaust valve, but like, you know, jackets in the cylinders and all that stuff. That is for, you know, sport touring or whatever they want ST to stand for, and you know that way you can go farther and make more power, more reliably with less issues. But we still have these other bikes. You know, we're not killing them. Because they've still got some time before those motors are considered dirty through the EPA. And who knows what's going to happen in the next 4 years with all that stuff, too, you know, because that could completely change. You know, that's why the original Revolution motor, which was the V-Rod motor, went away, is because even though it was water cooled, it didn't meet emission standards. It hit a point where it couldn't meet future EPA regulations. And instead of making it work because they weren't very good selling, except in like Australia,
Europe,
in Europe. They just canned it,
Yeah, that's interesting, man. Like I am excited about it. I think that the new bikes are cool. I think that I'm interested. I mean, it's interesting. I know that when they do, I mean, you're losing torque though when you go completely water cooled. You're not getting a lot of torque out of these motors like you naturally do. I mean, it's always in the sport bike, right? Is that an inline thing?
That has to do with the building of the motor, because a sport bike has
because the sport bike's water cooled used to be always higher torque, like a Suzuki SB or something like that.
I don't know, like I wasn't a sport bike person, but the reason sport bikes don't make torque is because it's an overbore motor. So the piston's really big and has a really short stroke.
Yeah.
So it's going up and down. It can go really high in RPMs, which is the benefit of a overbore. It can rev higher and make more top end power.
Yeah.
But the whole thing with like a stroker motor, it creates more torque, because if you have an underbore, so the piston diameter is smaller than the stroke of the piston, it's generally what creates torque. So that's why things like diesels are typically the stroke is longer than the piston is in diameter.
That makes sense. Yeah. First off, I'm an idiot when it comes to that stuff. So just saying what I'm saying is more like, hey,
all it would
make
do,
it right.
If they went water cooled, all it would do is allow them to put more compression into the motor and more timing and not melt parts. So you could have higher compression, more aggressive timing, because now you're not superheating. You're not. Like that's the thing is like you look at a Milwaukee.
A lot of heat,
dude.
by doing those things.
Watch anybody that rides a Milwaukee 8. If they have a temperature gauge on their motor and it's not like dialed in with a bunch of parts on it, they're easily 375, 425 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Like my 124, my soft tail, I specifically built that with parts to help keep it cool so that I barely broke 315. On like the hottest 110 degree day, I would break 315. But I did very specific cylinders. I did extra oil cooling. I did all sorts of things to help keep that cool, because I came from Phoenix, where dealing with extreme heat on an air-cooled motorcycle is a giant part of it. And you can make all the power you want, but if you hit 120 degree days, you're crossing Death Valley or something like that, and your bike can't handle it, you're going to destroy parts in your bike, or take life out of it. It's going to fail sooner than it should have or would have normally. So.
Yeah, the inmates always ran really hot because having like the screen on it like I did, it's like you just see it 380. It's like the gold bike, the bronze gold one that I had, like that one ran way hotter than
a lot of that is tuned too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's part of it's tuning, but part of it is if you go with like a ductile iron, which is like the standard cylinder, versus like a stainless steel cylinder, which is like the Screaming Eagle Performance cylinders, or like a Nikasil coated cylinder, which is an all aluminum cylinder. There's pros and cons to all of them, but like I would run the Nikasil cylinders, but you have to be really on top of warming the bike up, because aluminum expands so much more with heat than ductile iron does. So you have to be really on top of making sure you really warm the bike up before you rip it. Otherwise, you can cause issues with the pistons and cylinders and seals and all that sort of stuff, because it expands so much more, because aluminum, expands at a different rate than a ductile iron sleeve does.
Yeah, I always wonder why they didn't, like, you would have like aluminum cylinders, but sleeved with, like whatever steel or whatever, like the shit you were just saying.
Yeah.
I feel so off right now, like my brain is not firing on all cylinders right now. And I'm so sorry because, it was a rough weekend, man.
You guys went hard.
I appreciate you being smart right now because I fucking suck.
But I mean, that would be the benefit of doing a water cooled bike, is that they could throw more compression, more timing at it, and you wouldn't be melting parts internally.
How much longer do you think it would really be before we are like completely water cooled on these things? Definitely the next motor that comes out, because it's like the inmate's not going to be the motor for the rest of the time, right?
No, I mean, like for sure, they're like, I think. That's where, like, I don't know. I don't know enough about politics to, like, understand what the requirements are. And I don't know where their head's at as far as, like, what they want to do. The bigger issue is going to be getting the customers to bite on it. You have to give them a reason to want the water. Like if you just said, hey, it's water cooled, people are going to do exactly what they did with the V-Rod. And they're like, screw that. Like nobody wanted the V. There were very few people that wanted a V-Rod.
Yeah.
But if you say, hey, here's last year's numbers, what we did is we water cooled it. So we were able to increase your compression to 14 to 1 or something ridiculous. And we can bump your timing up and we can do all these things. And now the same size motor makes 15% more power.
Let me ask you this. What do you think is that line with like a bagger, the Harley Davidson world, where horsepower wise starts to just like, not that it always makes sense, but when does it cross that line where it's like, okay, these don't need to have that much power from the factory? You know what I mean? Like, does 160 horsepower Road Glide make sense?
For the average person, like 145, 150.
Yeah.
Like the average person, I mean, if we're being honest, the average person can't use 125 horsepower.
Yeah.
You know, the only time they'll use it is when they're racing their buddy from this light to the next light, you know. But my thoughts is anybody going past like 145, 150, either you're an extremely aggressive rider or it's mostly about just kind of bragging.
I wonder what some of the metric bikes come out with. What did we ever like what the Challenger gets like out of the box? Isn't it like 120 something?
Yeah, somewhere in that range. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, like I know like sport bikes. I mean, there's some that make 200 horsepower, but they're also race bikes, and most people are, you know, or they're specialized that supercharged Kawasaki bike or whatever, you know, and most people don't need that much power. Yeah, you know, I mean, I ride most of the time an 80-inch Evo, and the only times that I'm left behind is when we're doing triple digits in a straight line. Yeah.
Indian Challenger makes 122 horsepower and 128.
Yeah, I mean that's like a good range.
I wonder what which bike, metric bike, or just all in the whole touring lines of all models makes the most horsepower. Like maybe a BMW, or because I don't feel like a lot of the like Suzukis and those guys really make a lot of touring bikes anymore. I know
probably the Goldwing.
The Goldwing,
yeah, the Honda Goldwing probably makes stupid.
That's
power.
Also a huge bike, and it feels like it's more to carry the bike down the road, right?
Here's the crazy thing: if you ride a Goldwing, I don't know about the brand new ones, but when I worked in Phoenix, we had a rental bike fleet at the shop. Yeah, and they had a Goldwing, bigger than any Harley physically. Just looking at it, handled so much better. It felt lighter underneath you. Yeah, like when you would go to ride it, it felt more nimble. It felt easier to maneuver than a Harley did.
Well, that's how the new, like the 24 models, the baggers, and how like the CVO, the mid-year release 23 CVOs, they feel way lighter.
Really? I haven't rode one of the new ones yet.
You move them around the shop, you don't feel the weight in it. It's there still. Yeah. But it's like well,
it's all about where the weight is, and also, you know, steering geometry and trail and rake and all those different things play a role in how the bike feels when you're on it. And those Goldwings, man, when you rode one around, I just rode them on test rides. I didn't go anywhere on them, but it was insane how the bike felt so much small. Like it felt like you were on a little bike. It felt like you were on like a Sportster. Like I just whip it in through here. You know what I mean? Like no problem. But you were on this massive bike with a huge fairing and giant saddlebags and a tour back. You know,
it has reverse.
I don't remember if that had reverse. I never messed with that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure they do. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, right? Because I feel like like 140 horsepower. Like, I mean, I would be happy with that. Like, I mean, that's what my Road Glide was. The
only reason you need more than that is if you're racing or you ride like an asshole. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, you know, you don't need 140 horsepower to do 90 miles an hour down the road. Yeah. The only reason you need that much power is to accelerate extremely quickly. Yeah. Maybe if like you're 450 and your old lady is 375, you know what I mean? Like
bad for that bike.
Maybe you need that much to like do some normal cruising, but like the average person doesn't need that much power. But then again, you don't need a motorcycle too. This is where like the whole balancing act goes. Like you don't need a motorcycle. So
no, you do need a motorcycle. That's what. If more people had motorcycles in this world, we'd be a much better place.
I don't disagree, but it's not. That's where, and a lot of it is just people want to have fun. They want to hot dog it. They want to be able to. These bikes are getting to the point where they're making enough power to where it's like you roll on in like fourth gear. And if there's anything in the road, you're just lighting the tire up.
Yeah. I like the feeling of that's why I'm like interested in that high output motor in the ST. Is it on my ST? I did a kit essentially from Fuel Moto that was like injectors, intake, manifold. I was supposed to get a throttle body, but I never got around to getting one. Mm-hmm. But the throttle body with the injectors, the Woods cam, I think is the one that you
22X.
Yeah, that cam. Man, like it felt good. I never obviously dynoed it or anything, but like it felt really good. Like I was completely content with it.
Dude, like a bolt-in cam in these bikes for 90% of people that own them is all it needs. Mm-hmm. A bolt-in cam, quality components, good exhaust, good intake, oil pump lifters, but all the stuff that comes with that. Yeah. But you don't need a 128. You don't need a 132 or 136 or like I'm building two 143s right now. They're going to be like somewhere in like the 175 to 200 horsepower. Like, that's an insane amount of power. One of them is going in a Softail. It's like, so you got this super small light bike with 170 something horsepower. Like,
it's a rocket.
Yeah. But the other bike the guy shows up on is a brand new BMW S1000RR like sport bike.
Yeah.
He's like, this is my cruiser, but I want it to be able to go as fast as my other bike. So it kind of makes sense for him. He understands how to use that much power, how to have a bike that makes that much power and not just kill himself. Because that's the thing too, is, as these bike gets faster, you can probably go back. I don't remember if we talked about it on a podcast, but I know we had conversations when the performance bikes started to become popular. I go, we're going to start seeing a lot of people dying, or getting hurt because they want to make a ton of power, but nobody understands the importance of suspension, braking. And then even if they did, they don't understand the importance of learning how to use that.
It's like Paul Lindahl would always say is, like tune the rider. You know what I mean? Like people, they want to go buy the thing because it feels good to go buy something and get it's
instant gratification.
Yes.
You don't have to work. What people don't want to do is they don't want to work and they don't want to be bad at something, because it doesn't feel good to like take your bike to like a rider training course or like a track day or whatever. Like they have like track days that aren't for track bikes or whatever. It doesn't feel good to do that. And then you're being passed by like a 300cc like metric bike, you know what I mean? Like a Kawasaki Ninja 300 or something like that. But in all reality, the people that start on smaller bikes, like a 250 or a 300cc bike, they're usually way faster once they get to the big bikes because they don't have the ability to over brake into a turn and just accelerate real hard to catch back up with everyone.
Yeah.
They have to learn how to carry speed through a turn because every mile an hour that they lose through the turn is so much harder to gain on the other side. Mm-hmm. And that's where people just want to buy a big motor so they can brake real heavy, take the turn easy, accelerate real fast to get back up to everybody, and then brake real hard, take the turn nice and easy, accelerate real fast to catch up with everybody. And eventually you come into a turn too hot.
Yeah, I remember the time me and Steve Chamberlain met up in Iowa. I think it was Omaha, and we rode to Sturgis together. One of the days, me, him, and Shredder Bob went out running, and I was chasing them down and trying to follow their lines. And they gave me some great advice about like not being choppy on the throttle going into the corners because, like you said, you lose it. Like you have to build it back up, like the motor.
Well, and not only that, if you're choppy on the throttle in the corners, then it loads your bike one way versus the other. You don't want to chop the throttle and then completely unload your rear wheel and load your front end as you're coming into the brakes and then chop back onto the throttle. So then you're flipping it the other way, and you're doing, a pogo act in the center of your bike coming in, It's like the saying that slow is smooth, smooth is fast,
But yeah, you would see it, how they would come into it, and where they would start to throttle out and things like that. And, that to me, like, I like riding with guys like that, yourself included, that are just fast.
And
you got to that point, like you just woke up one day.
Well, and the other thing too is, like, it is very helpful to ride with someone that's faster than you.
Yeah.
If they're not so much faster that it pushes you past some limit.
Yeah.
Because you can be like, okay,
they did it, so I should be able to do it.
They did it. Let me figure out what they're doing differently than what I'm doing. Whether it's following their line, hitting their braking points, whatever.
Yeah,
that you can make those turns.
What I found out too is because Cody B is pretty fast as well, and a lot of times when we would be on our trips, usually Cody and I are in the front, and sometimes he'll take lead on corners, and I kind of preferred it because, like I said, I like the chase.
Yeah.
And man, like, it takes, like, the concentration, the focus, and everything you're doing. It's kind of like exhausting.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? We'll be going through, like, not Teledragon, but another one by us, like a Teleco Plains or something like that.
Yeah.
And I get in, like, yeah, we're gonna rip this whole thing. And like 3/4 way through, I'm like, I'm ready to kind of chill right now.
You can't do 1,000 miles. Like, let's say the Tail of the Dragon was 1,000 miles long.
Yeah.
Even if you could, it's hard to say because you can't do normal highway speeds on the Tail of the Dragon. But, like, you couldn't do the Tail of the Dragon from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Like, you would have to be a legitimate, like, athlete to be able to do stuff like that. It's physically taxing because if you're truly pushing it, your mind is getting exhausted because you're calculating a lot of stuff. You're looking at all sorts of stuff. Plus, if you're on the road, you're also looking for, like, deer, and armadillos and raccoons and some minivan that's taking pictures and not paying attention to the line.
Some soccer mom.
Yeah, exactly.
That's looking at her cell phone coming over the line.
Landscaping truck backing into a driveway. But then you're also, if you're riding properly, you're not really sitting a ton. You're constantly shifting from side to side, and most of your weight is on your feet, so that you can shift your weight. Because you want your center line has to be past the center line of the bike to the inside of the turn. That's where a lot of people will lean a bike this way, but then their head goes the opposite way, which is what you want in, like, a parking lot when you're taking a turn, like you're doing, like, police maneuvers in a parking lot because you need to balance the bike. But when you're going fast, you want the bike as upright as possible, which means that you have to be hanging off the side. The guy that really taught me a lot about riding fast, his name's Jason, and he actually, we ran into him in New Mexico on the way home on the raffle bikes. He was at some random hotel.
What?
He was racing as a racetrack right off of the interstate in New Mexico, and we go to have breakfast, and, like, we're sitting there, and I hear, I'm talking with Chris, and I hear, "Hey, motherfucker, we don't like your con around here," or something like that. I'm like, oh, great. Like, what are we getting into?
Yeah.
And it was him. He was there racing that weekend. But the way he explained it to me, he goes, besides shifting your weight, he goes, try and touch your chin to the lowest point possible inside the turn on your bike. Like, lower, touch it to your elbow. He's on a sport bike, so it's like touch it to your bar. But, on a Harley, your hands are up higher. But, like, try and touch your chin to the inside of that turn, and the rest of your body is going to fall. Because you can't touch your chin this way and like, you would have to really,
body upright.
You can, but you would have to shift your ass to the opposite side. Yeah. So if you shift to the inside and try and touch your chin, your entire center line of your body is now on the inside of the center line of your bike, which instantly means your bike can be more upright during the turn, which means you can go faster through the turn before you run out of tire or lean angle.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you'd have, like, you see the sport bikes where they're, like, dragging their chin on the ground and shit, right?
I mean, you watch those guys. That's literally what they're doing. Their face is this far. Like, they could do this, some of them, and, like, drag their head through a turn. Because you want your center line of your body as far to the inside as possible when you're making a turn fast. Yeah. But that was the whole thing we talked about. It was like, when this becomes popular, people are going to it's a lot easier for people to trade their time for money to buy something than to trade their time for knowledge. You know, it's just, there's, you know, the time for money to buy something is like it's a numbers. You can see it. It's a tangible thing. Humans, we love numbers. I've got 10, I need 20. I can see that I need 10 more.
And if I do the same.
And if I do this, I get that, you know, whereas knowledge, there's not like I'm at A and I need to get to D.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you know, and there's not like a clear path of how you get there or like how long it's going to take.
It's like working out.
Work.
Like if you're like my shape and you go to the gym, it's a while before you see.
It's just like working out.
You know what I mean?
Just like working out. You know, it takes a lot of time and the results are not instant. I ran my card. I've got this dope set of
where's my fucking tracking number?
You know? Yeah.
But yeah, that's why that's essentially what has been a big part of why I really like these, you know, these older bikes. Like I like the idea of it's like a dog. Like you got Ruby, right?
Yeah.
A dog, like I would meet people that would have an amazing dog. And I'm like, man, I want a dog just like that.
Yeah.
But not realizing how much work went into the dog to take it from that puppy that was wild to this like mature thing, right? I respect the people that have those kind of things now because I understand that it's not something you can just buy. I was like, fuck it. I want a blue pit.
Yeah.
I'm just going to buy one and it's going to be the coolest dog in the world. But then you don't.
It takes a ton of time and effort. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another great analogy because it is very similar that you see the final product and you're like.
Cat is like instant gratification, dude. They're fun. You don't have to do much.
I hate cats.
You always had shit ton of cats.
That wasn't me. that was my ex-wife had cats. And then I get rid of them all and I meet my new wife and she has cats. So I've got cats again.
Yeah.
I'm not a cat person. I don't like something that doesn't give you affection. And like they'll give you affection on like their terms. Yeah. They're like, I want to give you affection now. And it's like, well, right now I'm like trying to do like order a part or like do something on my phone or like make a quote for someone. I don't have time to give you. And they're just like constantly bumping your phone and stuff like that. Whereas a dog, man, like Ruby's sitting there in the side and go, hey, what's up, girl? Come here. Oh God, I'm so thank you for calling me over. I love you so much. You know,
cats hate you 95% of the time.
Yeah,
they really want to kill you. They just wish they were bigger. So
and the cats that we have are like retarded, like literally retarded. Like one of them's eyes do like this. I mean, like I say I hate them. I don't hate them. I would be sad if we got rid of them, but I like to talk a lot of shit. You know?
Oh man!
And they're both like super fat now. You know, the girl was fat when I met my wife. You know, it has a belly that just like swings back and forth as it walks through the house. But the male was like, Boone was super skinny, and then we got him spayed or neutered or whichever one it is for a guy, and I mean, he doubled in size in like a couple months without the testosterone.
Took all his fucking like mojo away.
Yeah. He doubled in size and now he's like super fat and just lays there and like licks himself all day long.
Yeah, well, having, I don't know, like that is cool. But on your build for the FXR Tour, like, first off, what made you want to like get into it? Like, were you looking for a challenge like this? I mean, just like
I saw the first year and the second year, all the bikes. And I enjoyed seeing people do things that wasn't like their normal thing that they do, or it's something that they're known for, or going beyond the limit that they had been at before, and watching how being involved with that pushed them to another level, whether it was they'd never done a full build like that before, or they'd never chopped a frame before, or they had never built a complete custom bike before. And seeing people do that and the response it got, you know, I really wanted to do it. And, you know, I wasn't 100% sure I was going to be able to do it. And like, if we're being honest, like I would prefer to have way more money in my bank account before saying, yeah. let's do this, but it's just gonna be one of those things. Like,
and figure it out.
Got to liquidate a couple bikes or whatever, like we will, to make it work to get it done. Because I'm not gonna fail. I'm not gonna not bring a bike.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the parameters in which you have, like the limitations. I mean, money is the thing. Like I didn't have a lot of money.
That's the only
to do on mine. So
money in what, 8 months.
So I mean, I think about it like this too. Like money, if you had all the money, you can buy all the things you want. But even having a restriction to the money, if say money wasn't an option, I mean, you're going to be able to do something cool. But it goes back to that last conversation. Like if you have to figure out how to do things on this bike, to get the things that you want, then oh shit, now I'm learning new skills. I'm doing new stuff.
That's the other thing that I'm gonna like. I'm gonna have some people help me with stuff very similar, like how you had Corey help you. Like I'm gonna have Xavier help me with the welding, but like I told him, I would really like to do as much of it as I can quality wise. Like if you see my quality is like, hey man, that weld looks terrible or that's not gonna work, then I'll let you step in. But I would really like it if you just kind of looked over my shoulder and like, hey, you're holding too long in the
guided and helped.
Exactly. I want to use it as a way to learn. The other thing I'm going to do, here soon is probably sell some equipment, some stuff I have laying around, and then end up picking up at least a lathe, if not a lathe and a mill, just so that I can do
the mill. I've been going down this rabbit hole, right? Because Corey runs a lathe and a mill, but I see where the mill comes into play for like the chopper frames and stuff like that. And obviously the mill has a lot of, there's a lot of things it has a huge array of other things it can be applied to. But I feel like for me, the lathe is the thing that I really need a lot, because it's not even just like spacers, right? There's so many things that.
Yeah. The lathe is what I'm going to do first.
Yeah.
Before I do a mill for sure. Because the lathe, when Xavier and I had a shop space together, I used his lathe all the time for everything. Hey man, the spacer's a little long. Let me shorten. Oh, this bolt's a little long. Instead of cutting it with a hacksaw and just, making it like throw it in here, cut it off, do a nice rounded edge on it, and it just looks better. Even things like, oh man, I need a special socket to fit inside this hole that I want to run a 12 point, but a normal 12 point won't work. Let me just take a 3/8 socket and whittle down the edge. And like, I know at some point it's going to fail, but at least I have the ability to access this bolt and torque it down or whatever to fit a bolt where I want it to go. So if I get one of those, that's going to be first, because I can also do things like I could set my, piston protrusion, or deck height or whatever you want to call it on cylinders. So, if I get all the correct tooling and things, I can, shorten my cylinders so that I get a 0 deck height, or if whatever I need to create the compression ratios I need for the motors when I put them together. I can, Evo bottom ends are pretty, your cylinders are, not known for lasting, or when you rebuild them, they typically need to be touched up. They're just not perfectly square and flat. So I can do stuff like that and not have to, like, I have a guy that does it now and he's good, but he's getting older and, health issues and other things that just nothing gets done as quickly. And I feel better about doing it in-house because then I can control the quality. Yeah. It's my standard, not get it back to the shop, clean it up, look at it. Hey man, like this isn't how I need it. Like I need to now drive another 45 minutes back to you to leave it with you for another week and a half to drive, another 45 minutes back up again to get it. So. Yeah.
That's what, downstairs. I have a spot on the wall that it's just got a table there. That's where I want to put the lathe when I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like waiting, and like I said, Corey's been a huge help. And when I see one that's kind of like, okay, that's kind of, I could probably afford that, and I'll send it to him. He goes, never heard of that brand. I don't know if you're gonna be able to find parts. Blah blah blah.
Yeah. That's what I do with Xavier. Xavier will send me once. He's like, this one's a good one. This one's not. Right now, we just,
I have so much other shit to do. The goal for a lathe for me is by the end of the year.
Yeah, mine.
But I want to get a good one. I don't want to just get a cheap one. I want to get a good quality one, but I want to find the best deal, obviously.
My goal is probably by like March or April.
Okay.
To
You also
grab one.
know how to run. I don't know how to run a lathe.
Yeah,
I understand a lathe.
I've run a lathe. You know, I've run Xavier's lathe, and like obviously when I went to college before I dropped out for mechanical engineering, like I know numbers a lot better than I look like I should. So, you know, I can do you know, a lot of math and math numbers make sense in my head.
Yeah.
As far as measurements and stuff like that, and you know, geometry and things like that. So my goal is to get one, like I said, March, April-ish. But, you know, I bought my wife a new truck last month or something like that. And, you know, she had like a little toaster box of a, I don't Kia, it looks like a toaster, a little square one. It's a terrible car.
Oh, like a Kia, the one.
Soul.
Yeah, the Kia Soul with the hamsters.
The hamster. That's what I was thinking.
So we bought her like a 2002 Excursion with like a 7.3 turbo diesel, you know, that we can all fit in now, which is great, but, you know, got to pay for
Those are pretty rad. Those old Excursions.
I mean,
diesel one?
yeah, her truck's like way sicker than mine now. Like I get in my truck and I'm like, oh, I got this little dinky gas 2500, and she starts her truck. It's wow, 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 wow.
Those are sick.
Yeah.
All the California transplants in Austin are looking at her like, typical Texan.
But the thing's, I mean, it's like, you know, from all I did a bunch of research before we bought it because it's just how my brain works. And from everything I can tell, that 7.3 diesel motor is like,
yeah, I was looking.
Motor.
Yeah, I was looking at them a while back, about 10 years ago. I was like thinking about getting a diesel, and there was like the 7.2 and then the 7.0, and this is good and that's not, and blah blah blah. I was like, I don't want to do this because I'm going to pick the wrong one no matter what. So
yeah, from what I understand, like the 6 liters can be great, but you got to like do a bunch of work to them. Mm-hmm. But those 7.3s, I forget what they call it. It's called, there's something where it's like 50% of the motors are still on the road at this mileage. It's like a spec they measure at, and that number for those motors is like 400,000 miles. So at 400,000 miles, 50% of the motors are still on the road at 400,000 miles.
Damn.
So we bought this one. It's only got like 190,000. I took it to a diesel shop because like I know enough to get myself in trouble with trucks, but like I don't know what I'm looking for. So like I paid someone to look at it. I go, hey, I want you to look at this thing, and I was building up pressure. I want you to look at this thing and like let me know what it needs. Yeah, you know. And like they caught stuff that I didn't. It's not that I missed. I just didn't know to look for it.
Yeah, I didn't even know, huh?
But they were like, yeah, the motor seems like amazing. Like there's no blow by, good to go. So it's like a lot of creature comfort stuff, fixing cables that are broke, fixing switches that don't work, stuff like that. But that truck is so gangster compared to my truck now.
Yeah, my buddy in NorCal had one for a while, and when I would go up there to work, he'd sometimes just let me drive it around.
Yeah.
Fucking sick, dude.
Dude, they're great.
Yeah.
So now I'm jealous. But yeah, so we bought that. So now I got to wait a little bit.
Yeah, like I was telling you downstairs, man, I have a lot of things. I'm about to really bust ass with paint, like probably even put it out there and see if I can take in some more work and just really bury myself in it. Because now that I've kind of taken having the chopper done by El Diablo off the table, it just kind of, I don't have to build a bike for I'm going to try to.
Yeah.
But I don't have to build a bike for that. I have the FXR, just need to do some maintenance on it. I'd love to be able to say I rode that bike and did all this amazing shit. And I went to Mexico for the first time in my life on it.
When is El Diablo?
It's literally like the same weekend. It used to always end up falling the weekend after our camp out.
Okay.
So it's the weekend.
April?
It's
May.
First beginning of May.
Second, third, fourth, because Monday we're going to be on the road back from Mexico on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, like I said, maybe, you know, I don't think I'm not even going to really push hard. I want to build it. I want to do everything cool, but I want it to be right. And I'm just trying to take that pressure off the top, right? Yeah. Building a bike in 8 months for Born Free Texas is still pressure, but it's like you you get kind of bottled up whenever you're thinking about all the stuff you got to do and you have 2 months, but then you also got to work to pay for it all.
Yeah, it's called paralysis by analysis.
Yes, yes, 100%.
Like, oh man, I get that all the time. I'll be sitting in the shop, I'm like, oh man, I got to do this, but if I'm going to do that, I might as well do this first. But then if I don't do this, like, why am I not doing this first? But then I can do this and get this done really quickly. So why don't I do this? And then before you know it, 2 hours have gone by and you haven't done any of it. And you're like, oh crap, like what am I doing? You know?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just want to kind of bury myself in it. I'm going to, we have Nitty Gritty coming up. That's going to be, Devin and I are working together on really bringing an element to that performance stuff, performance bike show, performance alley, if you will. And we're actually going to go walk
That's next month, right?
Or
like
this month, the end of March.
Oh, the end of March. Okay,
yeah.
That was the end of February. Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing that and getting that dialed in. And that's really the only like big pressure thing that I want to. Yeah. Since we're not doing the camp out, like I want to try.
Yeah, this is the first year you're not doing the camp out.
Yeah. But so that's the thing about Nitty Gritty is it can fill a part of that void of what the camp out was because it literally has that feeling there.
Yeah.
But there's other things going on and I don't have to be responsible of creating those things.
Well, and you're also not the person responsible. You don't feel the weight on your shoulders of like, man, like that guy is not interacting with everyone at my event. Like what am I, these guys are off by them. And you're like, no, this is, this is my thing. I'm doing this thing. And then everybody else, like maybe they're not here for that show or maybe they're more interested in the child, Yeah.
Exactly. So there's just more going on. There's more things happening that other people are putting together so that as far as having entertainment and having the opportunity to go do and be around shit, there's just going to be more there. It doesn't have the writing that the Oklahoma area had.
Yeah. Because it's like in the middle between like 10 and 20 basically, right?
So it's in the piney woods, right? It's like 10 miles from Crockett.
Okay, yeah. But it's like halfway between like I-10 and I-20.
Yeah.
Over off near I-40-ish.
I-45, yeah.
I-45.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice out there. And then the time of year is like bluebonnets. You remember what it was like going to Giddy Up and we're cruising down to Giddy Up? It's like the time of year.
I wish someone would do that again. Giddy Up was...
Yeah. Well...
That was a great show.
We started like so Oliver Peck's old lady Audra, myself, Tommy, the people at Nitty Gritty, the Denton Burnouts guys, we were put like together like a collective group of people. So all the bigger events that go on in Texas, we're all in a group now so that we can start promoting each other's shows and helping each other and also not stepping on each other's shows. Does that make sense?
That's a great idea.
So it's like, all right, well, Texas Hills is coming up. So, you just have a support system from everybody. And with so many people moving to Texas, it's like we really just need to have some organization on our shows and our events and show, what we have here, which is a lot more unity within everybody in the scene.
The other thing that people maybe that are listening that aren't from around here don't understand is that like Texas is a state, but it's massive. Mm-hmm. It's not like the Oklahoma guys or the Arkansas guys where you can hit every border of the state in a day. You can go eastern border to western border, northern border to southern border.
Yeah.
In a day. Easy.
Yeah.
You can't do that in Texas.
I got a funny story about that, Mark. I had a friend come down from Missouri, and he was going to an event in Texas, and he was like, I'm going to come down a day early because I think I'm going to run out, and I want to go check out Terra Lingua before the event. I was like, that's not
from
happening.
Dallas?
Yeah. I was like, that's not happening, bro. Like,
come down 4 days early. You'll make it out
and
there.
it's because they just...
Yeah, especially if you're from like the Northeast.
Yeah.
Like you're
used to go through like
you hear those guys like, what are they talking about? Crossing state lines. Like we do that to go get a burger type thing. Yeah. But like growing up, it was, if we crossed a state line, like that was a big trip, because especially where we live, like at least in Dallas, y'all are
close
like
to the border.
Oklahoma is fairly close. Louisiana's fairly close. But like when we grew up in Austin, 600 to 800 miles.
Yeah.
Before you leave the state in any direction.
Yeah.
There is no real quick. Like when I went to college, the closest Hooters to Starkville, Mississippi was actually in Alabama. Yeah. And I was like, that's insane. We're going to the next state over to go eat? Like what?
It is a perspective, right?
It is a perspective thing.
When you live out the east and you cross state lines a lot, it's just like everyday thing, right?
Yeah.
But here it's like, fuck, the state line's coming in 2 miles.
Yeah.
You know,
well, it's just like people that live in like the Smoky Mountains or the Rocky Mountains. To them, it's just where they live.
Yeah.
When we go there, we're like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. This is so amazing. Look at all these views. Like, oh yeah, but this guy's blocking the road, or I need to go get milk, and there's some guy wrecked on the side of the road.
There's a boulder stuck in the road. Yeah. Well, it made me think when you said that about the how far the borders were. It's like when I grew up, there was a lot. I mean, even myself, like I think the first time I ever left the state, I was a teenager.
Yeah. We would leave the state, but it was like, that was our big trip of the year. And typically we would go, Austin to Shreveport, which we had cousins in Shreveport. And then we go to Jackson. Mm-hmm. We had cousins in Jackson, Mississippi. And then we'd go to Mobile, Alabama, where my granddad had a blueberry farm. And so like we would do that, or we would drive up we have another family farm up in Chase City, Virginia. And so that was like the two places that we drove to. And it was, if we went to Virginia, that was a 3-day road trip.
Yeah.
It was like, it was a hot minute to get up there, to drive up there, and even going to Mobile, that was a typically 2 to 3 day trip, because we, stop in Shreveport for a night, and then stop in Jackson for a night, and then,
cut down. Yeah.
It's not like you just, hey, we're going to go the next state over real quick to, go see a movie, or like whatever.
Polaroid,
yeah, exactly. It's just real quick. So
no, it's that we're really trying. I think a lot of us are trying to come together, and not saying that I won't put on an event. I have ideas. I'm just waiting on the right time to kind of bring them into the world. But I want to bring some different shit to the table, so that in connection with all the other shows that go on in Texas, that there's not another show that's just like Nitty Gritty, or it's just like Texas Hills.
Well, the other thing too, like there's
Free.
2 reasons for that. One is there's a lot of events, like there's more events every year. It's not like it was when we first met, when there was nothing. And like the camp out needed to happen because it was the thing that everybody went to. Like there's enough stuff where there's things that everyone goes to.
That's a good point. That's a good perspective.
And then number 2, like you've been throwing events for 7 years now. Mm-hmm. Take a year or 2 where it's like you're not, do something small. Like, hey, we're gonna come out. We're gonna do this very small part of your show. You do everything else. We were gonna have these trophies or these prizes or these gift certificates for that, for from 3 to 5.
Yeah,
and then that's it. And you're not worried about a whole weekend and lining up. We need this band this night, but then we need someone during the day in case people are there during the day. And then we got to do this at night. And then we got to have someone doing tattoos. And then we got to have food. And then we got to have drink,
Yeah. So what, not to hijack the podcast about that, but what Deb and I are trying to do at Nitty Gritty is also like, we want to take what we learn from that. And I just got off the phone with Mike from Born Free the other day, and we're going to bring that to Born Free, Texas, but we're going to create an outside of the bowl thing.
Yeah.
So that it might just be a night thing. I don't know. I want it to be unique and cool.
Yeah.
And we'll figure that out. But we're learning a lot of stuff with the Nitty Gritty thing and partnering with those guys. And like I said, I had a blast last year. And I'm
definitely going this year. Like especially after missing the Polar ride this year because of plumbing and kids, which is
shitty situation.
No pun intended.
Yeah. I walked into the shop and we got a shower in the back of the shop. Like I went and used the bathroom and all of a sudden it didn't flush. And I was just like, oh man, I took a big enough dump. Like got to get the plunger, and like starting to plunge and nothing's happening. And I'm like, that's weird. And then I look behind the toilet and there's like water all over the floor. And I'm like, it hasn't where is this coming from? And then I go look and like there's water coming out of the other toilets.
Yeah.
And then I go in the bathroom and there's like literal crap floating up out of the shower. It
never happens when you go pee.
No. Like that would have been great. Yeah. Like, oh, okay. So yeah.
We had a weird thing at our house about a couple months ago where the plumbing was fucked up, and we plunged it. We did everything we could, and then like we kept trying stuff. We're buying fucking snakes and all this stuff to go down there, and then just 2 days later, it just went back to normal.
Yeah. Just
it's like something was in the pipes or something out there in the city.
And it finally disintegrated enough or broke down enough to go.
But no, so we want to create events and give people opportunities to experience stuff like that.
Yeah.
Nitty Gritty's fun. Texas Hills. They're Mikey's actually stopping here. No, they are. Mikey, he was texting me when we just got here. He's coming through the mall. We're gonna go have like lunch or coffee, and kind of he's letting me know what they're doing. That way I can be help and help them keep that thing fun and cool. And then obviously working with Oliver Peck and Audra too. There's still Southern Throwdown is still a thing, and we're trying to figure out how to
Southern Throwdown. Oh, that's right. They moved out to the Yellow Rose.
Yeah. So
I wish they I know that they own the Yellow Rose or they're partners in it or whatever, but it was, in my opinion, I liked it more in downtown Dallas.
Well, that's the thing, and I think sometimes it's they bought the property and it's like, okay, well, how much we're paying, whether they paid cash for it, I don't know those details, but they bought a place to do events, right?
Yeah.
And now you have an event,
but you need to have new events.
Yeah.
Keep Southern Southern Throwdown at the Bomb Factory.
Yeah, but the problem is they didn't stop it at the Bomb Factory because they bought that. The property got sold.
Yeah.
So there's really not a place like that unless you're going into a convention center, and then it doesn't have a vibe anymore. If you're doing a show at the same place they do the computer show, which that's my buddy Zach from Heavy was talking about that. You got to create an atmosphere and a vibe for an indoor show.
No, for sure.
It can't be at a convention center where you got fucking carpet.
Well, that's why I really think going south and west is in my opinion, the best direction for shows just because of what's
the openness,
out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's mostly open property.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's big land, there's there's bars that have 20 acres attached to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which you don't get in Dallas or Austin or Houston or whatever. And so yeah, I mean it's because I remember the first year I went to that show, I went with Rocks, with Eric Rocks.
To Bomb Factory.
Southern Throwdown at the Bomb Factory. And then that was the year that what's the guy that jumped the Harley?
Oh, Cole.
Yeah.
Cole Freeman or something like that?
Yeah, Cole was there, and Eric and Cole knew each other. And so
they
let Eric and I bang a bunch of wheelies on the street that was all blocked off for him to do his jump at.
Yeah.
And so we were sitting there just banging wheelies down the street at the Bomb Factory the whole time. It was so much fun. Everybody's freaking out because Eric's perfect. He's hitting balance point, doing stand-up wheelies and all this, and I'm just ah! Just running it out as far as I can till I hit red line and come back down.
Falling to the left or the right, yeah. Sketchy. Everyone's like,
we did get stopped because someone's like, this is too sketchy.
Yeah.
I need to quit it.
Yeah, so that's the goal, man. Just try to help do stuff. And, even trying to get stuff to get other friends from other states to come here to vend or be a part of the shows. I don't know. We got these social media tools, right? And I think we all need to make an effort to be more social on that instead of just media. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've all just been conditioned to make content and to help grow ourselves and our brands. But man, it feels good to connect with people and be able to help a guy get, do this or they help you do. I miss the social aspect of that place,
Well, it's what the motorcycle industry was when I got into it. Before social media, because I got into the motorcycle and I think technically Facebook or MySpace was out or Facebook or something like that, but nobody I knew used it. Nobody in the motorcycle industry used it from the world I came from.
I think when Facebook phased out chat rooms, remember people would go to chat rooms a different or forums like a forum, right? So there would be a Harley Davidson riders forum, and all these people would go in there and chat, and that was a social interaction, right? And then Facebook kind of started groups, and it killed the forum world, right? The chat world. And then that's when I think people all really started leaning into, more so than they already were, building business pages on social or on Facebook.
When I got into it, I wasn't even aware of forums. I knew computers and I knew how to operate computers and build all these things, but I wasn't into the community side of the internet.
Yeah.
I got into motorcycles and we did everything in person, face-to-face communications. Hey, I'm going to head to wherever you're at. Where are you going to be? I'm going to be here. All right, cool. And then you would, like, if you were lucky, you had a printer and you would print up directions, MapQuest directions, and then try and look at them while you're riding your bike. Like, okay, where am I going? Oh fuck, I missed the turn already, you know? But
that's got to be a lost skill. People not knowing how to read maps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But like that,
Lost
people helped you back
MapQuest
then.
is.
But people helped you back then because they wanted to help you, not because there was a goal in it or a benefit for them, or like if I help you, I'm going to get a shout out, or if I help you, I'm going to get something.
Think about it like this too. Back then, there was a level of, to get to a point to where you could even ask for help or someone knew you needed help, there was a level of effort you'd already put into it.
Yeah, 100%. You couldn't just, there was no, like the random person couldn't just walk up to you and be like, hey, how do you do this? You know?
Yeah.
You couldn't get into a conversation with someone that had that unless you had already done other things and gotten into certain groups or been certain places.
Got
and
introduced by somebody.
Exactly. And so it made it to where you didn't have to work. Like there wasn't, like obviously there's still people that are always looking out for themselves and are trying to screw people over. But it felt like there was far less of it.
Yeah.
You know?
We just didn't see it all. It's just like the world's a safer place, but we see all the bad all day long. So it feels 100%. Like it's more dangerous, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I have that conversation with my wife. She's like, my parents used to let me go to the mall by myself and walk to here and there. And like, I would never let my kids do that. I like put my little fucking, push my glasses up. Like statistically speaking, it's actually safer for the kids to do it now, but you just hear about it more because you have more access to information. So previously, you would watch the news in your city and it covers 80 miles or 100 miles or whatever around, but you didn't have access to Podunk, Mississippi town here and, random Iowa corn town here and all these places where you hear about all these things. So there was actually more crime back then. You just didn't have access to it because the news only came on for 2 hours in the morning
it didn't go straight
and 2
to your
hours in
phone.
the evening. And it wasn't blown up on your phone where you could see it all day.
What was the public service announcer with like beep on the TV?
Yep.
It's like, think about it. If you were maybe if you're driving, you'll get the radio, but if you're just doing something, you're in the shop working or whatever, you're mowing the grass. Like you have no idea that maybe there's they didn't even use that for kids back then. Yeah. That was like a major thing. It wasn't just like, oh, some dad took his kid, you know what I mean, and like didn't give it back to his mom. It was like to
expand on that, back in the day, the only way you would know what was going on with kids being missed would be like you went to Walmart and you could see the posters
or on the milk cartons.
Hey,
they would be on the milk cartons.
And it's like, oh, okay. Now a kid goes missing. Kid and mom and dad have a disagreement. They're not together, and all of a sudden, an Amber Alert goes across the state.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay.
It's a manhunt going on.
Yeah.
But it's just different. But like I said, going back to the optimism that I'm feeling this year, I feel like I just feel like the opportunity to grow things. Devin was talking about like this was a great event this past weekend of creating a lot of momentum that I think that we want to kind of all feed on this year. And I think you building the bike, the tour coming back around doing it again. It like when I start seeing you build your bike and the other builders, I'm going to get the bug about building again. Fuck, I want to do another one, dude. Because I'm going to miss those feelings. I mean, there is literally in building like on the tour, there's like when you get done, there's going to be a little depression.
Yeah. Everyone I've talked to has been like, when it's over, there's like a postpartum depression almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, now what?
Yeah.
You blew your load.
Post-nut clarity.
I don't know if it's like post-nut sadness where you're like, oh God, what did I do?
Yeah, it is gnarly, but it's just like being plugged in like the whole year. Like you're challenging so many different things about your life, like the creativity, the get it doneness of like financially, like coming up with the money, getting it done, scheduling time. Like it's a really good just workout for your life.
Well, and that's the thing. Everyone I've talked to, because obviously like I knew, people involved in the first year and then people involved in the second year. And like the number one thing everyone says is like the people that were involved in the tour with them are now some people that they'll cherish for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Maybe not everyone, but like there's at least a handful of people that like I really connected with this guy, and like I would have never met him had it been for the tour. And like that's the thing that I'm looking forward to is like, obviously I know some of the people. I never heard of a couple of the people, but I like stalked them on Instagram and like they do cool stuff, you know. And like some people I'm aware of, but I don't know. And like I'm excited to like see how, number one, like what they build, but then also number two, like I'm looking, honestly, the thing I'm looking forward to the most is the riding. Like once the bikes are done, like I'm looking forward to riding with everyone. Let's see what everybody's bike does. Let's go party afterwards, you know, or drink tea or whatever, you know, but you know, let's hang out and have fun. Yeah.
Well, getting people. The first year, we all knew each other. We all were pretty familiar with each other. Like Ashley was probably the only real oddball out, the garage builder, Unit 6. He was really the only oddball out because he just moved here to America. He hadn't been here long. You know, he's establishing his brand here and all this stuff. But he ended up becoming one of the dudes that every fucking buddy loves. Yeah. Right? And the first year, the group chat, if the group chat stays, it's not going to be fire all the time. It gets heavier. It gets it gets used when you get closer to the end, right?
Yeah. Hey, do you have this? Hey, who can help me find this? Yeah.
But if you find ways to engage with each other on there, it really helps make it a better thing because the group chat really can bring people together in a different way. Because like it's not a competition, right? The bike, it's not about winning. It's about completing. Yeah. You know?
Well, it's like obviously I never did military, but I would assume it's like some sort of training for some sort of military group. Yeah. It's not like if you make it up the hill first, you win. Yeah. No, if you make it up the hill first, but none of your other group does, you actually get penalized because you didn't help the rest of your group make it up the hill together. Yeah. You know, that's
well, the concept behind the whole thing was literally about you know, when you go on a ride, you go on a trip, right? And the one or two or however many people you're going to go on the trip with, like the excitement in like a text message chain or group chat or whatever, you start getting excited. Like, oh man, I'm thinking about wearing these or buying these for the trip. What do you guys think? Or, you know, I need to get my bike dialed in. I was thinking about buying a new seat. You know, you're talking about it. You're feeding off this excitement that's going to happen, right? Yeah. And then when you do it, that lead up, the actual doing it and knowing, because you're going to know everybody struggles because it's going to end up coming out in the group chat. Yeah. You know, and you're going to be like, fuck, man, I'm so proud of you for making it. You pushed through a lot of shit to get here. Yeah. You know, it's your personal life coming in to attack you, to keep you from doing it. Not attack you, but, you know, causing some like roadblocks.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many elements that can keep you from having a bike, finishing the bike, that you got to navigate those waters. Because, I mean, I wouldn't say everybody has problems. But
yeah, unless you're a single guy that won the lottery,
like, you can still get in your own way. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be those things.
Yeah, that's true. They could have all sorts of other issues. Yeah,
you bite up too much. You try to do something over the top, and it doesn't just go together the way you want it to, or whatnot. So
we've seen that. Or people just get, you know, I don't like people telling me when I got to do stuff, but you know, like you see everything. Yeah, you know?
But it's like anything, man. Technically. I think everybody will be fine. It's going to be a good year. But jokingly, I was telling you about how our buddy Marcus was saying like about starting a Deadpool for this. Basically, I don't know what you would call it, like not a Deadpool. You know what a Deadpool is?
We were talking about doing like a parlay where where it's like, okay, who's going to quit?
Who's going to drop out?
Have the bike that's the most popular, and then you
who's going to quit? Who's going to have the bike that has the least problems or most popular? Whose bike is going to make it but not finish it? Yeah, you know? That'd be fun.
But it's like,
listen, I think that'd be great because it's anything that draws more eyes into the situation. Because it's not like you're talking shit. Yeah. Because like, let's be honest, every year has every builder that started finished? No. Okay, so it's not like you're not.
And you're not hoping for it.
No, exactly. You're not.
Well, I mean, I think I would be if I bet on it.
No, but here's the thing.
But it's just a way to draw attention to it. That's my thing. Is this whole thing is supposed to draw attention to the builders and not just the builders, but like the aspect of building bikes and then riding them.
Yes.
And so anything that draws more eyes to that, even 100%. If it's someone. Talking, you know, negatively about it.
Could you say, and I'm asking this just complete perspective wise, FXRs, as we both know, they go up and down in like one couple years, everybody wants them, and then they kind of like they do that, right? Well, I mean, it felt like when the first year tour happened, it got real popular. Now a lot of the people I feel like got inspired from maybe the first year or whatever you're starting to see these bikes that they picked up and are dialing in.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I feel like everybody's on FXRs right now, which is dope. I like it. You know? But at the same time, like, you know, I don't know. I'm really just excited for the whole thing, to be completely honest with you. I'd like to see more people not get out of the box, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe, I don't even know how to say it, because
I want to see more people involved in it. Like, I don't know what their plans are. Like, I haven't talked to, you know, the people, you know, hosting it as far as like what their plans are for the ride. But like, I'm hoping that they do, you know, I don't know where they're going to start or what they're going to, but like, I hope that they're picking epic spots. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I want it to like start somewhere cool and then end somewhere cool. And whether
it would end at Born Free.
I mean, obviously it's going to end somewhere cool, but like, I want it to start somewhere cool and then like every day end somewhere cool, or like some epic spot or whatever. Like, you know, like the worst thing in my mind that could happen is if they're just like, let's do 1,000 miles just because it's 1,000 miles. Like, no, like pick somewhere that is a cool spot that has like, every spot needs to have an epic backdrop. Wherever you stop, it has to have an epic backdrop, or it's historic. Like something has to make it to where it's like people would want to see.
When you're going on a bike trip,
photos.
When you're going on a motorcycle trip, you're usually planning to go to do cool shit or go through cool places or do cool whatever, right? You want to stop at cool towns that you want to spend the night at. Yeah. You want to ride down certain roads that, you know.
Yeah. Things that are either like historically relevant or like some sort of crazy history has happened there, or they're scenically beautiful or something like that. But then like I really hope they do something at every stop this year where it's like every stop we're going to do whatever.
Well, you want to get...
It doesn't have to be like a dealership, because I know like the first year was mostly dealerships or something like that. Last year I wasn't... it wasn't all dealerships. There was like I don't think it
was any dealerships. It was Bare Knuckle Paul, then Frank Speed Dealer Spot. Then they did a thing in Hot Springs, which Hot Springs is pretty cool, Arkansas.
But just like have something, but like not just, hey, we're showing up to this bar. Like a thing where there's a spot set up for all the bikes to be, and people are coming to see the bikes, whether it's at a local shop or even if it's at a bar, but someone that is, involved in the motorcycle industry that is also making content about it. Like, hey guys, make sure you come out Wednesday because the FXR Tour is coming through. And we get people to come along. And the other thing too is I just hope people come along on the tour, even if you're not involved with it. Like, I think that was one of the coolest things is like hearing all these people like, yeah, dude, we met up with them here. We couldn't start all the way with them, but then we met up here and then we finished, or we started with them, but we couldn't go all the way. So we went to here and then went like that seems rad to me. Like just people just picking up, like, I'll do what I can. I can't do the whole thing, or I could do the whole thing and I'm there for whatever you need. You need me to go get you a gallon of gas because you ran out, I'll go get it for you, whatever. But that's what the motorcycle community was when I first got into it. Before, because like I got into the motorcycle industry before it was like cool to be. I mean, it was cool because like they had the 2000s choppers and Sons of Anarchy, but like you didn't get into the motorcycle scene because it made you popular. It wasn't like the thing to do to become famous. You did it because you actually enjoyed riding bikes, or you wanted to be. Well,
you enjoy the culture of it,
exactly. And the tour. I feel like I'm really hoping it brings that out in people, where it's not just people showing up, because some people will show up, but then they want to I hope that I'm doing this, but you need to tag me in it, or what? The fun thing was like hearing the stories at Born Free, where like the guys like someone that I had no clue was there, but he's like, yeah, dude, I was doing this and I did this and I followed this and I helped them do that. It's like, that's amazing that you did that, asked for no recognition, no anything, just because it was your buddy or because you liked his bike or whatever the case.
When you're on the road, like a certain thing comes over you where you're like, you don't want to leave anybody on the side of the road.
Dude.
And if you can help solve a problem, whether you're on the tour officially or just unofficial, I mean, it's kind of like if all three of us go to a bar real quick and somebody just comes up behind one of y'all and slaps you or whatever, like we just see red.
Yeah.
We don't have, you know what I mean? Like it's the same thing. You just get into this like, I don't know if it's a hive mentality is the right word to say, but
yeah, it's that pack mentality.
Mentality, yeah. Which there's good stuff to come from that.
Especially after like how everything went down on the trip back from California. Like I have a much greater appreciation for people who are willing to go out of their way to help someone.
Yeah.
You know, like that to me shows so much more character than anything else. Like I'm going to go out of my way and I'm not even asking for, I'm just doing it because I like you or I like your bike or I just want to be helpful. Not because I think I'm going to gain X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, no agenda.
Yeah,
no
zero agenda.
No
exactly.
ulterior motive, just
because I want to. Just out of the goodness of my heart, I'm going to help you. You know.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I mean, I feel like a lot of the things, even when it is just the good inside of your heart, I think there always is some kind of like small layer of like.
Well, no, here's the deal. When you're helping
not
someone out of the goodness of your heart, it's still self-serving.
Yeah.
Because if I help you, even if I don't tell anybody about it, I still feel good.
Yeah.
It's never 100% out of purely helping someone else. But there's a giant difference between I'm gonna help you on the side of the road because I realize that you're Jace from the Fast Life Garage, and I'm gonna help you, and then maybe I'm gonna call you in a month, and you're gonna paint a bike for me for way cheaper than you normally would. Versus, hey, dude, I saw you broke down. Like, you need gas, you need a battery.
Yeah.
Like let me just help you get back on the road.
Yeah.
And then you try and give them money. Like, nah, like I would want someone to help me if I was on the side of the road. Like, I got this. We're good. There's a giant difference between those two. You still, at the end of the day, you still get back on the road and someone helps you, but the motive inside is different. And I'm okay with it being self-serving as far as it makes them feel good.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be self-serving in the far as like, I'm going to get something out of this.
Yeah, that's you create an expectation that, if you don't put that on the front, like as fucked up as it might be, I would rather than be like, hey, look, I'm going to help you, but this is kind of what I'm thinking here. And I'm like, it's kind of dickish, but at least you're upfront about it. You're not making me think that this is out of, like, all right, cool. That's you helping me solve a problem. That's like saying, hey, that's like a tow truck driver.
Yeah. Hey man, you broke down. $300.
If you can't pay me, I'm gonna keep rolling.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't know, just to play devil's advocate on that a little bit, but so what do you think about your build? I mean, you don't have to divulge it all, but I mean, like, where you?
So I haven't 100% decided on drivetrain yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna kind of let that speak to me, but I'm for sure gonna chop the frame. Mm-hmm. After, I grew up in the 2000s watching, Chopper Mania and Biker Build Off and all these things. And I haven't built a chopper. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to chop the frame. I'm going to follow some lines that are a little bit different than everybody else's lines that has done it. But I'm like taking the time to like, nerd out on it, make sure all the math is right. I'm going to do all my rake and trail to make sure the bike handle's incredible and tour is incredible, all those sorts of things. But, and then from there, I'm going to kind of wing it and figure it out. Cause I listen to a lot of people that have built bikes and they're, I think you've said it and other people, it's like the worst thing you can do is have a predetermined outcome going into building something because you get halfway through it and you're like, oh, well, like that thing that I thought looked is exactly what I wanted doesn't look right.
Yeah.
So like I have ideas for things I want to do, but they're not even close to set in stone.
Yeah.
It's just like right now, this is kind of what I'm looking at.
Got your rough overdraft.
And then once I get to the finish, this checkpoint, I'll readdress those.
Yeah.
And if they look like they're on par, then we'll continue down that path. And if they don't, we'll pivot.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's kind of like sometimes if say whatever you're buying that you have to buy for the build, it's like if you start the project out and you go ahead and order all these parts that you want to run, and then you start putting the bike back together, it starts to evolve into it. You're like, man, none of this shit really looks good on it.
yeah.
Because then you're like, in the build process, some idea, the light bulb moment goes off. And you're like, man.
Yeah, but that doesn't work with this part that I already
Yeah,
bought.
and so you might not do that thing that didn't exist in your mind.
Yeah.
Because you already committed to some financial thing of like, oh, well,
I already bought these pegs. I don't want to
Yes.
spend the time to make something that I think fits better than these ones. Yeah, no, I agree.
I still really want to build an FXR in the vein of how Rennie did his. Like, I like his bike, and I would love to build one like that.
I think Rennie's bike is the only thing I would change about Rennie's bike is the Springer front end.
I like it.
No, I love the Springer front end. If I was going to do the performance chopper, I would do like a girder front end with like a performance shock in the girder front end so that it ties in this, I would, that's the only thing I would change about that bike. That bike is sick. It looks great everywhere it goes. People love it. Like
I kind of want to build. That's kind of why I like the FXR I got. The one downstairs, it's like, man, I wouldn't mind like selling all the shit I got and just keeping the frame.
Yeah.
And start kind of like whittling down, kind of like how he did, but like try to take his direction, but like how it's flowing through me.
Yeah.
So it's still like inspired by, but it's, just like he was inspired by Indian Larry style. It's not an Indian Larry build.
Yeah.
But that was his inspiration for the build. You know what I'm
Everyone
saying?
has something that inspires them.
Yeah.
Like I'm taking a lot of inspiration for what I want to do from like you and Mike. I liked your and Mike's bikes a lot. I want to see if I can do it a little differently.
Yeah.
Put my own little flavor and touch on it, make it different. But like, I like the thought of having a bike with a backbone that comes up really fucking high. And it's like the tank's right in your face. It's not down here below you and you never see it. It's like right here. And you're kind of looking over the tank as you ride the bike.
Yeah, my tank is kind of part of my fairing.
Yeah.
It helps block some of the wind like from my body.
Yeah. So that's like after seeing yours and his bikes, like that's where I'm drawing part of my inspiration from. There's some of it's coming from Rennie's bike. There's some aspects of Rennie's bike that I really like that I'm gonna probably draw some inspiration from. As far as like negative space and his use of negative space and stuff like that. I really enjoy some of the stuff that he did there. And so, it's And again, everything could change. I could chop the frame and be like, nope, we're doing that. Like this just doesn't look right or this doesn't go good, because I've got this theory about when I chop the frame, I want to make it look like you just took some sort of edit thing in Microsoft Paint and just dragged the neck up, but still keep all the gussets and the square tube and all that. But like we could get it on a frame jig and do all that. And I go, man, that looks terrible, and I won't know until I get it done.
Yeah.
Well,
the good thing is like between Xavier, like sometimes the advice that comes from people is not advice like aesthetically, like, oh, that's not going to look good. It might be like, okay, well, if you do that, then that means that this will be that way. Yeah. So it's kind of like, for instance, in my head, like when you tell me that, like I see it, I'm like, okay, that's cool. But now how you do your tank, in my opinion, is very important because if you have a big square backbone, then you can't really Frisco mount in the same way that you would if it was a smaller tube.
Yeah, it would have to be a different style of,
Yeah, I mean, you could still Frisco mount it, but it's going to be a deeper tunnel.
Yeah.
Because you don't necessarily want
you don't want half the frame hanging out.
Exactly.
No, for sure.
And then you have to work, at that point, then you got to do some crossover stuff with like lines going under it and things like that. So it's like, it's not saying it couldn't be cool, but one decision opens up a different can of worms than another decision, right? And that's the fun part about building is like working out those puzzles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's why I've got ideas that I want, directions I potentially want to go in as far as like tank and
honestly,
everything goes. But like I'm not like I have to do this or else I'm not doing it, I
if you go on like eBay, right, and you buy just buy lots of Easy Rider magazines. You can get them pretty cheap. They're, $50 for a whole year, right?
Yeah.
Still have the posters, all that in there. Well, all the 90s, there are a lot of FXR choppers that were built in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like cool shit that like when
Xavier's building my first Harley that I ever bought right now.
For real?
That frame you painted.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first Harley.
That was
I
the
ever
Kenny
bought.
Boyce one?
That was the Kenny Boyce frame.
Nice. So what I'm getting at is like a lot of these guys when they start, in the 90s, a lot of it was like still the pro street style, right?
Yeah.
But there were some high, tough guy looking choppers that people were building FXRs out of.
Yeah.
And I found them. I'm like, oh shit, like this is like kind of what I'm doing now that I thought I was being, not creating the whole thing, but like, the rear fender is another big one. Like finding a way to do.
You know what's hilarious is I was looking at a Fat Bob in the shop and I go, I hadn't watched any of your videos on your chopper build yet. This was like right as the decision was made of who they were picking. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, man, what would look dope? It's like, I really, honestly, whose bike I thought of, hilariously enough, was Connor's bike. I was like, I really like that fender that Connor had on his bike. But like, if you just make that smaller, I think it looks sick. And then I called you when we first started talking about this. And you're like, dude, go watch all the videos on the build.
Yeah.
And like, see what I did. And you were like, oh, I took a Fat Bob fender. And I'm like, God damn it. Now I got to figure something else out. But like,
that's the other thing about like, I think that people get wrapped up in about building bikes.
Yeah.
It's not about always being different. It's about refining.
Yeah.
So if someone has an idea that you like, how can you refine that and make it better? The same way, if I had to build my bike over again, there would be some differences that I think would make it this number 2 would be better than number 1.
Yeah.
But number 1 will be special because it was the first one and it created something, right? So once again, like nothing that any of us are doing building bikes, and even people like everybody, like it's all kind of like tried and true stuff that people do.
Yeah.
And then you refine it.
Unless you're like, when like Luke Fueling came out with the W3 motor.
Yeah.
And even then, that motor only had 12 new part numbers.
Yeah.
Or 10 new part numbers from a factory twin cam.
Yeah.
They reused as much as possible. Like, there's very little, like some of the Arlen, the Nest bikes.
Yeah.
Those things are insane. But even those things came from, we saw this on a movie car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or we saw this on this drag vehicle and we modified the idea to fit a motor. There's no such thing as 100% new idea anymore, in my mind.
Well, a good thing about like having such rich culture within the automotive, motorcycle, pop culture, music, art, all this stuff is that you can look back. And a lot of times to move forward, you look back, right? Like what was done that like real pioneers of all this shit is the people that built the country, right? Yeah. Like over the last 100 years, the things they made, the style of cars that are still kind of sought after today. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's a reason that a car from or a motorcycle from the early 1900s holds so much more value than a car from the 70s, late 70s, 80s. Like, except for a very few select cars. The cars from the 80s and 70s are throwaway cars.
Yeah. So when I did this last video I put out with the shop tour, like it made me realize I never looked up when my fridge was from. And I found out it was from a 1948, I think is when it was made.
Yeah, you thought it was like late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah. And I'm like, fuck, man, that's bad.
I love that fridge. I've loved that fridge since it was in your house. I remember showing up like, that thing's sick. Like, it's got, you got to leave the door open and let it, frost out.
Yeah, I need to do it right now pretty bad. It like freezes shit and busts all the cans in there. That's why I had to fill it up for the video I did, but then I forgot to take all the beer out, so it's probably going to bust in there. But no, well, that's what I'm saying. Like when you find the right inspiration to move forward, it's just like when you think of like music, like your favorite bands, they'll be like, oh, well, we're real big into, Led Zeppelin. It's a big part of like the essence of who we are is some of that and some of this. And I've always said this, like creativity, even like art, like you're building a bike, there's art in that, right?
Yeah.
You're inspired by certain groups or certain people in the motorcycle world, and then they flow through you
Well,
and then you become a new thing, but you're still
everyone ever, except for maybe the first guy that ever played a note on a musical instrument, has taken hints, clues, cues from someone else.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's like, oh, well, hip hop was totally different. I go, yeah, but hip hop sampled funk beats and 50s rock and roll beats to make their hip hop. And then 50s rock and roll beats sampled 30s depression music
blues,
songs,
right?
blues songs to make their stuff. Like everything takes something from the past.
Yeah.
Changes it a little bit, modifies it, makes it their own, and then
it kind of becomes a new thing in a sense, but it's still inspired by, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's kind of the point. So I guess to wrap that back up into like the conversation about the bike, it's like me personally, like I don't look at everything like, oh, this thing that I created that nobody else could ever have.
Yeah.
But when Corey and I were building the bike, we talked about it in the videos heavily, like, the biggest thing that we felt like the FXR choppers weren't doing was focusing on the rear half of the bike much.
Yeah.
And they had like this sick fucking, rake or de-raked long neck. And then if you park that bike at a gas pump
and you're looking from the backside
and, you don't see the front half of the bike, it looks like a stock bike.
It looks like a stock bike, 100%. That's
not saying it's bad.
No.
I'm just saying
100%. That's one thing that, because, I mean, obviously you said it, like Xavier is going to help me with my frame modifications a lot because him and I have a very close relationship. And so, it's one of the things that we're talking about is like trying to figure out what to do. Because, like, I don't want to build like a custom back half of the frame. I don't think that's the way to go.
You don't want to fuck with all that.
At least right now. That could change.
Yeah.
But like right now in my mind, I don't want to build a custom back half of the frame.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to do something that, like you said, if you caught a glimpse of the bike going by and you just saw from the triangle back.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody to be like, oh, it's a stock FXR.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm not the only thing right now that I have set in stone is the rake that I want.
Where do you want the rake at?
21 degrees.
Damn.
Yeah. I did all the math. I figured out exactly.
Get you a fucking steering stabilizer for sure.
Nope. I'm going to have 3.98 inches of trail.
Okay.
I've already done all the math to figure out with the wheel size that I want to run and everything that I want. Doesn't matter how tall the front end is because I'm not doing any sort of offset or I'm not doing any sort of rake in the trees. So the trees are going to be perfectly parallel to the neck.
But if you do a 21 degree rake, you'll probably definitely have to stretch the backbone out, right? Because you're going to have enough wheel clearance from the frame.
Yeah, no, I mean it's going to be up and out probably a tiny bit.
Okay.
That's where we're going to have to kind of play with everything exactly what I want. But as far as neck angle, geometry, and then front end handling goes, I've done all the math. And what I want, I'm going to have to do custom trees to get, a stock 39 millimeter tree is 2.5 inches offset. Speed Merchant's like 2. I need to build a tree that's like 2.25 offset to get my trail where I want it. So I'll probably end up getting with like Oscar at Twisted Tea Industries or something like that and designing a custom tree, or, Justin at My Machinist or whoever I need to build a custom tree because I know what offset I need, but I haven't determined what front end I want yet. Because like I don't know if I want to do a 39 millimeter front end. Do I want to do the new 43 millimeter front end from like a Softail ST? Because I think their trees are like 1.5 inches offset, maybe.
I mean, you still want to do custom trees because
no, I'm still gonna have to do custom
wide,
trees.
Dude. Yeah,
but
it's a wide glide front end.
No, for sure. But I'm just saying, like, I know what numbers I need.
Yeah,
I've just got to figure out what parts I want to use to get there. But I am gonna do a 21 front, which I've never done on a bike that I've ever owned before. So I'm gonna do a 21 front wheel, I'm doing 18 rear. But the bike should still handle amazing with a 3.98 inch trail. That's a stock FXR is like a 4.2 inch trail. So it's actually going to be better handling quicker, more nimble, I should say,
yeah.
in the twisties than a stock FXR.
Yeah.
But, you know, like my bike right now, because of how my suspension I'm on, this orange bike I'm on, it has like a 5-inch trail because I've got 6 1/4 front forks on it, but only 14-inch rear shocks in an RT position. So it's like a 15-inch shock in a standard FXR, but that Dyna +2 tree, which is more like a plus, it's like 3 1/4 or something for a stock FXR, lifts the front end so much that, you know, I really need a 15-inch shock or a 15 1/4-inch shock in the RT position. So the, you know, the farther back position lifts the bike up higher to make that bike stick level. So, you know, we're going to try and keep the frame, you know, level on the ground, you know, figure out what kind of heights I need so that my front wheel doesn't interfere with the frame or anything up front. And then from there, like I said, I haven't even made a decision on bars. So it's like, we're going to figure it
bars,
out.
honestly, bars are kind of like one of the last things because that's all going to be determined by all that other shit,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Because I don't know what the tank's going to look like yet.
Yeah.
So like once, you know, my goal is to get the frame done here fairly quickly because I'm going to do this. It's actually the pink FXR. That's the frame that we're going to chop up because that's an 88 FXRP fairing frame, but some douche nut already cut holes in the frame to get to the rear rocker box bolts when they were doing it at some point back in who knows when.
Yeah.
So it already needs frame repair anyway. So I'm going to use that frame to build the bike on.
I thought it was cool that you did that one because that's your birth year frame.
It's a birth year frame.
And
it's also got history between
us,
me starting the shop. Like that was the bike that I started the shop with when I started actually caring about, like, when we met, my bikes had 0 form. It was 100% function. If it worked, we're running it.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck how it looks.
Well, that trip you and I did when we first met, riding to go to the Dixon Flannel thing, that was a big part of me wanting an FXR after that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was one of those trips that, like, I'll look back on for the rest of my life. And, like, that was a really
It's almost 10 years ago, dude.
I know. That's insane. That was, next year it'll be 10
November
years.
2016.
Yeah. That's insane.
That was so what I was that video I just put out, the shop tour thing, like I wanted to kind of give a little bit of a history of the shop because you saw my shop before this.
Yeah.
You know, huge fucking shop. I came here to save money. I just wanted to paint some Dynas and FXRs, work out of the garage, and then I kind of got like at Born Free on the grass, phone call from landlord, hey, the guy that was renting the shop, he's gone.
I remember.
Do you want to have the shop?
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck, man. I was scared as hell. I was like, I don't know if I could afford it. I adjusted my whole life to work a little bit less and be more out there on the road.
Yeah.
To go, just do more and enjoy it. And then all of a sudden now I'm like, fuck, I got to paint. I got to do this. But going through all these photos and trying to find things, elements to bring into the video. Yeah. So it's not just me talking like, then I did this and then I did that. But having, like, I found my old social media post for like putting out there like paint. Remember I did the $1,000 Dynas?
That orange FXR I'm on.
Yeah.
That was $1,000. That was that was the first FXR you ever painted.
Yeah.
That one you did for Mike Pantassi.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's like, trying to wrap all that up, and it doesn't feel like a long time ago. So I don't think of it as like the history of anything.
It's one of those things. It doesn't feel like it is, but then you sit and you think and you go, oh, wow, that really was almost a decade ago at this point, That's insane.
Wild. Yeah. I mean, you started Texas Performance in 17.
Yeah, it was right after we made that trip. I came back and I almost got into like a boxing match with the owner of the dealership that I worked for. I was like, I'm done. Like, that was when they came in. And at that time, we had Sundays. Sundays, the whole dealership was closed.
Yeah.
And on Sundays, all the techs, we would, like, for the most part, we would go do something together. We would go camp down by, like, at Hueco Springs. We would go camp down there at the campgrounds. We would go ride out to Marble Falls. We would go do something not involved with the dealership, but like team building, quote unquote type stuff where we would all just hang out and have fun. And they're like, all right, guys, so we're gonna be open on Sundays, and half the people are gonna work, Monday through Saturday, and the other half are going to work Tuesday through Sunday. And like, I stood up at the meeting and I go, dude, that's fucking bullshit. And like, to the new owner of the dealership that just bought the place, I go, that's fucking bullshit. He goes, what'd you say? I go, dude, that's bullshit. Like, you in Texas, for those of y'all who don't know, they can't sell bikes 1 day a week. There has to be 1 day a week that they're closed. It's called like blue line laws or blue state laws or something like that. There's 1 day a week where they are not allowed to sell motorcycles because of, the God and Jesus or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, there's a day where they can't sell bikes. So
it's cars, it's everything. You can't.
Any vehicle, you can't sell a vehicle. And so it didn't serve a purpose for it to be open. And I knew of the people who bought that dealership because it was the same people that owned Ride On in Phoenix. And I remember when they came on and bought dealerships in Phoenix were closed. Everyone was closed Sundays. And then they bought a few, and there's not those laws in Arizona. And so they started opening their dealerships on Sundays. Well, because they did, everybody else had to in order to stay competitive.
Yeah.
Because there's another day they could sell bikes. There's another day they could get work, all that sort of stuff. So I also saw the turnover of their techs and how they treated their employees. And so I remember, when they bought this place, I like sat down and told all the other guys, I go, count your days. Like, I think there's only one tech that's still at that dealership that was there when I was there.
Yeah.
But we got into this pissing match, the owner and I. Like, he like stood up and tried to be like, are you talking back to me? And the dude was like 5'10", like 170-ish pounds, and like not like, he was a wealthy guy. He wasn't a fighter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll fucking destroy you. Like, so, it's funny you go asking those guys, they still talk about that meeting, but that happened right after I met you.
Yeah.
Like we met through a Facebook group.
Yep.
Yeah. There was like the Texas
Dynas
and FXRs or something like that. And I just said, hey, I'm going to the Dixon show because I knew Danny from working in Phoenix. He was
that whole trip, I still know people that partied with us in the parking lot at the hotel. Yeah. From that night.
Well, that's the thing is like some people don't realize, like I don't, like in the parking lot that night, there was like Tall Boy T was partying there, and like Dom 829 was partying there, and all these other, like one of my exes was there. It was a crazy fun weekend, and
dude, that ride home was sick though.
Yeah, it was. Well, that was where I started to learn what little I know about taking pictures and photography. Because like before then, like I tried the social media, like in Instagram, like right before I moved to Texas, I tried to do some Instagram stuff, but I'd be like putting in cams, be like picture fueling tag. Like, why did they tag me? Like I posted a picture of me putting their cams in or whatever. And then when you're like, no, dude, you gotta do this and have this and like look at the backgrounds and do this stuff. And like obviously you've progressed a million times past where you were at that point.
When we did that trip, I had just bought my camera, like first, like, okay, I want to be a photographer. I just bought the camera in September, and this was November. So my son's mom was like, she went to school for photography. So I knew things, right, by osmosis of being around her, right? Yeah. But I was always scared to take on another art craft because I literally felt like I was cheating on being a painter, an artist, a custom painter, whatever. It's like, I can't, all this time and energy I put into this has to work. It's kind of like being married to an idea on a build, and then something better comes along, but you're like, nope, I just can't do it, So, but yeah, that trip was fun, and I wanted to kind of, that trip was based off like, I watched that 21 Days, and I'm like, fuck, man, I want to do shit like this.
Dude, that trip, because that was Chris, who now works at a dealership here in Dallas area, I literally like went in the dealership and I go, hey, I'm going to Phoenix this weekend. Does anybody want to go? And Chris was like, I'll go. I was like, all right, cool.
It's like that half-baked moment where homeboy's
like,
quitting.
Fuck you, you're cool, fuck you.
No, it's the other one where homeboy's like,
Oh yeah.
he gets
All
fired.
I want to know is who's coming with me. Yeah. No,
Who
exactly.
my girlfriend?
Yeah. So
I'm a big dyke.
yeah, and I remember still like meeting because like we met in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and like you know, Chris has asked me questions like, "Who are you meeting?" I go, "I don't know. It's this guy in the Texas Dyna FXR's group."
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I was still very much like we talked about. I was function over form. I didn't care. That bike I think I was on had like blonde cylinders, black heads, chrome lower rockers, polished upper, black center, like nothing matched. It didn't leak, but like everything, it was all about what worked, nothing about what looked right.
Yeah.
And that was all I cared about, was how it worked. And I still remember to this day, like pulling in the parking lot, I go, oh, fuck, please don't tell me the guy we're meeting is this guy on this fancy painted Dyna. Like, he's going to be so
The funny thing is that I had no function. I just, because I mean, that was the first bike I built in this performance, whatever, club style shit. Dude, I had the fucking progressive shocks on there with the piggybacks. I didn't adjust them. I just put them on, and I had no idea. Like, I didn't know how to fuck with it, And I learned a lot through being your friend on that. Like, okay, we joke about it, torque specs, all that stuff, but taking it seriously and and being more mindful of like the run out on the motors, the adjusting things, and so it's a mutual thing of like I spent my whole life beautifying motorcycles or whatever the case would be, and you spent your whole life making them fucking perform better or at least to what they're supposed to. Yeah, and so it's like you gain from like people.
Yeah, no, way. I mean, I've learned an insane amount from just, being friends with you. And like, that was how the pink bike came to be, because that bike ended up becoming the pink bike. Yeah. And while you were painting it, you called me, I think, and you go, hey, man, you can't leave the motor looking the way that it looks with this paint job. Yeah. And that was when I came and I bought that 124 from the guy in Dallas. And I made it to the end of my street. And then it blew like 3 or 4 cylinder studs because the guy had stripped all the cylinder studs and just filled the holes with green Loctite and then pushed the cylinder stud back down in the green Loctite.
Wow.
But that was
remember that night when I brought my motor down there for us to take it apart and I thought I bought an S&S motor and how dumb. And
for the gold bike.
Yeah, and you're like splitting the cases, and I'm going to bring the cases and all that stuff back here to Cerakote them. And you're like, dude, why does the flywheel say Ultima? And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, does S&S use Ultima flywheels? Is that what's... I was like pissed. I was like, that dude fucked me over. But then come to find out, he said, yeah, I got this 113L Bruto motor. And I'm just thinking like, cool, 113, I'm just S&S. That's all I thought about. Because before the 111, the main one was the 113 and then a 124, right?
Yeah. And that before, like now they have 80, 111, 124. But previously they had like 80, 88, 96, 107, 113, 111, 124, like there were so many.
Too many.
Yeah, they just had an insane, because that was back in the chopper boom where they could afford to tool up the machines to make all these different motors for whoever wanted a certain size because they were producing, umpteen a month.
Yeah, yeah. No, that it was fun, man, and it's just the building of all this stuff. Over the years, watching everything become what it is, the ebbs and flows of all this, scene and culture, and even starting the podcast. I mean, you're a big part of the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah, I remember the first one we did. It was
in the garage.
Well, we did that one in the garage.
The
computer
crashed.
got corrupted.
Yeah,
and then we went and did the first one with it
Zombie Mike and my little brother and you and I.
Yeah,
at his house in
Houston,
because we went to that Supercross thing.
That's right. That's what it was. Yeah, I got us all tickets for the Supercross through Drag Specialties. Yep. We went and did that. Yeah. That was it's insane to look back and like remember talking about it from there, and then like see where it's gone now. Like it's
wild.
Absolutely crushed.
It's humbling though. It's maybe not. It is humbling, but it's just I don't know. You're kind of like gracious. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. I'm
Appreciative.
appreciative of like the fact that, you know, you had I've always had a great support system through friends and the community, but you just see it grow. You see people that come on the podcast, and you see, you know, not because of them being on the podcast, but you see where they are on episode this, and then a couple years later they come back, and they've done this, and this thing they were talking about doing, they're talking about all the things that came from that, and it's just like cool to have documented a lot of the progression of a lot of things.
Oh yeah,
the whole performance,
dude. I think like one of the episodes that I remember like listening to that I was just like, dude, I can't believe like I know the guy that started this podcast was like when he did the Nest.
Yeah,
I'm sitting there going, like he started this in his garage. Like I was there, like I was there when he started this. And now like he's sitting at the Nest facility. Like like that's insane. Like that's so crazy that it came from like this small and like honestly, what it boils down to is like you didn't quit. You know, like you were consistent, and you weren't going to take no for an answer. You were like, I'm just going to keep doing it, whether it's good or not. You know,
it was not good.
Like, we're just going to keep going. You know,
dude, I remember the first Joe Kidd podcast. You know, at your shop, man. Like, I was the worst podcast host in the world. Like, I really was. But I mean, it was episode 15, right?
Yeah.
And here I am in the bathroom peeing and talking about trading bikes for buttholes on Craigslist and all this wild shit. And, you know, I remember when that podcast came out, it was like top for so long. And then like, it's just like our camp out. The first 2 years, it was like 40 people. Then it was like 70 people. And then COVID happened and everybody came. The COVID year, it was like, fuck, there's like 200 people here now. That was a big jump. And then the next year it was like, oh, 300 or 400. And then the next year was like 1,200 people. It was like, it's the same thing with the podcast. Like one day it's like, oh, you got traction, and then something happens and you get a big spike, and then it kind of jumps to another level.
Exponential growth. So the human mind is not designed to understand exponents very well.
Yeah.
So like the way it was explained to me was like if you have moss on a lake and every day the moss doubles in size, how many, like from the day that it's covered, how many days before is it half?
Yeah.
And most people will be like, you know, say some random number, you know, like, or from the day, you know, if it takes 30 days to be half covered, how many days until it's fully covered?
Yeah.
Most people will be like another 30 days. The answer is the next day because it's an exponential growth. You know, it doubles.
Yeah.
Which is just an exponent of 2. The human mind doesn't understand exponents because it's not a straight line.
Yeah.
It's a curved graph.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so that's where we're just, the human wiring was not designed, because that was all stuff that came up after we, you know, hunted and gathered for however long, you know. Math wasn't a part of the equation. Straight lines worked, you know, parabolas worked because they were arrows or you threw something. But there wasn't an exponent. You didn't throw something and all of a sudden it got double the speed every second and then shot up in speed. You know, like that's an insane, that doesn't happen in nature as far as observable to the human eye. Yeah. You
know, the hardest part about anything, and I'm sure you can attest this about just running a business the way you have, you know, a shop, you know what I mean? As much as you have to work on yourself to be good at what you do, the best, you also have to work within like the way society is, sorry. And it's kind of like, you know, the trends, the social media. I mean, think about it, like when a bike trend changes, you know, everybody put in all this work to be a badass chopper builder in 2002. And then it went away. And it's like, how do I apply these skills and these tools to something?
Well, you see the people that succeeded.
Yeah.
They're, you know, you can follow the people that succeeded. You know, like there's still people building choppers.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And now, like, there's, you know, now there's anyone like Billy Lane, you know, those guys. But like Yaffe is someone who did that, saw a change in the market, didn't change who he was, but just like pivoted.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, I see this other niche. I'm not going to like say screw choppers and never do that, you know, pretend like I never did it again, which is like, we saw that with the big wheel bagger stuff. Big wheel baggers got big. Certain companies were like, oh, after that, performance baggers. Oh, we're going to do performance baggers, but we're going to pretend like we never did big wheel baggers. Yeah. Like we were never a part of it.
It is a polar opposite of the thing, right? But
100% it is. But
you know,
if that's where the market goes, that's where the market goes. That's why I picked mechanics. Like, doesn't matter what's cool. Choppers. Yeah. It doesn't matter what's cool. Choppers, baggers, big wheel baggers.
Yeah.
Whatever. Tough guy choppers, raked out fucking choppers. Doesn't matter. Everyone needs a bike that works okay. Like goes down the road straight and runs good, you know? And so, as inefficient that is with my time as far as money, because like if I design, like I've always thought this, like if I design parts, like I could make so much more money so much quicker because you know it takes
you front load it. You front
load your time.
That's the exponential growth, right?
But then
it doubles. Yeah.
But
so that's the thing about
you make the profit. It doesn't take any time because it's just a click and then put it in the box, slap a label on it. Go.
But that kind of coincides with what I was talking about, how you're trying to stay current with what the world wants and how the world is and how you can apply what you know how to do to be of value and service to the world. Yeah. So like if you design a part, you know, that is, you got to hand it to people that do really design a lot of parts because it's a gamble.
It's a gamble and it's hard.
Yeah.
Like if you want to build a part that actually felt like, unless you're just copying somebody else's design and being like, oh, I'm going to put a hole here or I'm going to put a ball mill here.
Yeah.
If you're designing a part, like you have to like think about, you know, like the first experience I got with that was building that HSR bike with Xavier. Like I say building it with him. I provided help.
Yeah.
You know, he built the bike. But I go, hey man, if you do it that way, you're going to have this issue. But if you do it this way, that issue doesn't happen and you can remove it to service it.
Yeah.
Because that's where my brain goes on everything. It's like, you know, that the biggest thing between like a chopper builder and like a mechanic is the working on the bike after it's done.
Yeah.
Like how many of these bikes can you not even remove the rocker covers from without pulling the motor out of the frame?
Yeah, I hate that shit.
You know? And so like that was the biggest benefit when Xavier and I shared a shop space. Is like, I'd be like, hey man, he's like, hey, let's do this. And I go, that's dope. That's a great idea. But if we do it that way, we can't pull it if we need to in the future. Why would we need to? I don't know. Something happens. You know, whatever this part fails, whatever, we would need to get it out. If you do it this way, it's going to take 4 times as much time. Or if we just come up with a creative way to bolt it.
Yeah.
And you can still see the bolt, but a creative hidden way to get to that bolt, then it's serviceable in the future. And like that bike, I wish, you know, I don't remember if he bought it back or the guy sold it to someone else.
Brother? No, he said
it was the bike that he built for his brother.
Yeah.
I think he owns it. But like I wish, like that's one of those bikes that I wish I could own.
Yeah.
Because it means so much to me.
Yeah.
Because that was like one of those first custom bikes that I felt I had like any sort of, I don't want to say in, because like obviously it's his bike, but like I had a hand in helping with it. You know what I mean? Like he'd be like, hey man, what do you think about this? You know, like, and like like he genuinely wanted my advice and help. And like, that was the first time someone that like built bikes on that level, like was at like, hey, this is just a mechanic. Like, let's ask him what he fucking thinks, you know? Yeah. And then not only did he ask, but like he acted on it and like built the bike in accordance with the advice that I was giving him to where the bike is super sick and serviceable. And, you know, it's not like,
and works.
Oh, to do this, we got to pull the whole transmission out to swap the battery, you know, kind of thing. So
no, there's definitely aspects to all that, man. It's building a bike, you know, it's an experience and there's a lot of great that comes from it. But man, building a bike with your homies or your friends or a mentor or whatever, you're sharing it with somebody else.
It adds a level of joy because it's like no one wants to do something and be the only guy at the top.
Yeah.
Like, I did this and I did it all by myself and I brought no one along with me.
Yeah, that's failure, right?
It's way more fun to be like, dude, we did that. Like, maybe it was my idea or maybe it was whatever, but like we all did this. Like I used you to do this. I used you to do this. I took your advice on this part. I took your advice on how this section should go.
Yeah.
And together we all created this amazing thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's way, way better and way more fun to like bring people along with you than just.
You know, when we started the podcast and you'd go talk to people, you know, like, you know, Brian TBJ used to bring this up because he's kind of always in a funk, but in a sense for this time, he was a master fabricator, builder, all this badass shit he's done. But he felt a love of motorcycles. But he even told me, he's like, dude, just being on a podcast and talking about my past and all these things, like it brings back the feelings that I used to have.
Yeah.
And when you're around other people who are also enjoying things, it keeps the fire alive.
100%.
You know, motorcycles, we've always talked about this, you and I both. It's like there's a period of time where you don't need nobody else because this thing is so fucking exhilarating, right?
Yeah.
And then just like horsepower, just like everything else, you get used to it. And then it's like, man, this would be funner if someone else was here.
Yeah.
Or if I could see somebody as we're seeing this sunset. Well, do you see this shit?
Dude, that's why I was so excited, you know, thankful, I guess should be the word, that we were doing this because like I was looking forward to the polar ride because I hadn't really done anything since Born Free.
Yeah.
Texas. Mm-hmm. And like, I mean, like I rode the bike around town and gone, like we take the bike when the wife and I go to the mothership and stuff downtown, but like I hadn't really gone anywhere on the bike. And I was so looking forward to the polar ride. Like, dude, I'm going to get to ride the bike. We're going to go do whatever, 600 miles or whatever it is to Shreveport, see all the homies, hang out for it's for 24 hours and then come back home. And then the pipes happened at the shop, you know?
Yeah.
But like in the back of my head, I go, I still get to go ride like 250 miles.
Yeah. On a beautiful day.
On a beautiful day to go spend time with a couple guys that I really enjoy spending time with. Talk motorcycles, hear about all the stuff that I missed, but in like a good way. Like, dude, I can't wait. Like, you know, I'll be there next time.
You know, building the bike with Corey, the fun, just like you and Xavier, when y'all were doing that bike and he's able to bounce ideas off of you, having that text message, like we don't have to have a phone call. I'm thinking about this for the rear fender. What do you think? Call me in a minute. Let's talk about it. Or hell yeah, it's sick. I see where you're going with that. Having that to bounce off, we all need that.
Yeah, no,
because you trust your eye, but you want to validate it just 100%. A little bit. You know?
And there's a confirmation bias where like if you think it's supposed to look this way, and you're like, dude, this is gonna be sick, and then your buddy goes, dude, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you do that? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't go with this, or it doesn't match.
It helps limit the tunnel vision.
Yeah, exactly. Where you're like, I have
perspective.
Exactly. It's the whole thing of like, I have to build the bike this way.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, hey, we're gonna start with this, and then kind of see where everything else goes.
I always say, man, like put it on a lift, get your little roll around chair, set the lift middle, high, low, and just roll around and stare at it and go.
Yeah.
You know, the way this flows to this. That's how I do it with the paint. That's how I did it with the FXR chopper.
Yeah.
And the moment I brought the frame home and I fucking stabbed the motor in it, put it on the wheels in the front end, I was like, fuck, this looks so goddamn good. Like I was so stoked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, like it just, I didn't even like, I was on, cloud 9, dude. And you're like, man, you see where it's going. And now you just want to keep adding to it to get it to the finish line, right?
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of uncertainty on that buildup. It's like the roller coaster ride. Like you know there's an end to this, but you don't know what it's what you're gonna see at the top. You don't know how it's gonna look, how it's gonna feel until you get to that point when now you trust the process, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like, fuck, dude, that's it, you know? Yeah. And I mean it's Jeremy Lucky Strike said it early on, one of the first podcasts I ever did. He goes, it's a roller coaster ride of, being super stoked about your ideas and confident and not being insecure with yourself and what you know how to do and what you're doing. And then it's like you finish the project and everybody loves it and it's cloud 9. It's like, fuck yeah, you're the best. I'm the best. Let's go. And then you start the next project and you go through all the doubt and the fucking, okay, am I a fucking imposter? Blah, blah, blah. And then you get to the top again. Yeah. And it's like a fucking super swing in the creative world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
and that's what I haven't had to deal with ever, because my world and like my business is set up on just like, this is the clearance, this is the spec, let's make it function as good as possible. But like, no one's coming to me and been like, hey, I want you to build whatever you want.
Yeah.
Design it however you want, whatever parts you want. You know, I've had random people be like, hey, I want you to build a motor however you want, which is, it's fun and it's dope to have customers like that, but never like, I want you to build this bike and like everything from the bolts on, you know, the valve stem, you know, cap, to the paint, to the frame, to what hand controls, what headlight, what tires you run, because certain tires look better than other tires, even they might not perform as good, you know, like all that sort of stuff. Like I haven't had anybody do that yet. So.
The good thing about having customers for those kind of things is like there's typically a parameter or a direction provided by them.
Yeah.
And you're able to build on that. Sometimes when you're completely
or limitation. Sometimes it's limited. Like, hey, I've got 10 grand.
Well, when someone says, hey man, I don't care what I just want a paint job from you, whatever you want to do. I'm like, man, that doesn't work for me. I have the hardest time picking my own paint.
Yeah.
So it's like I'll rack my brain for weeks trying to figure out that thing that, do I really want this?
Yeah.
So when you say I want red, I want blue, or whatever
That's what every bike I've painted from you, all I've given you is a color.
Yeah.
And I said, the first bike I go, I want pink, because I let my daughters pick the bike. I go, I want pink, whatever you want to do, pink. And then, you know, the next one, I want blue.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, I want blue. You know, I didn't even give you a shade of blue.
Yeah.
You know, because like if I picked a blue, it would be more like a blue like the wall, probably like a deeper blue. But you went with like a more teal color. And like I love that fucking bike.
Yeah.
Like it looks beautiful. But you know, when especially when it comes to like paint work or art of some sort, I don't believe in trying to tell someone what to do, because I see it in my work as far as just being a mechanic, which isn't an art.
Yeah.
It's a science to be a mechanic. And then people go, hey man, I want this cam, but I want this exhaust. I go, those don't go together. Like you picked an exhaust that doesn't have the properties that your cam needs, or your engine doesn't have the proper compression for the time, you know, the timing aspects of your cam. Yeah. Like it doesn't make sense. And I've seen people do that just with things that are strictly ones and zeros, numbers, you know. When it comes to art, like you can't, I want this swirl here, but then I want it to swirl this way here, and I want the, you know.
When I was building the Lowrider ST, I had a company. It's not bad against them. It's kind of, it was not Woods, Redshift, I think. What's the company that Redshifts with up there in Baltimore?
Baltimore?
Yeah,
I thought they were in Tennessee.
No, Redshift. Well, maybe that, but there's what's the name of that company that they sell a lot of the Redshift cams. I don't think it's them. It's like a performance shop up there. Fuck, it's on the tip of my. No, they're in San Diego.
No, they're not in San Diego. They're in like Wisconsin area.
Oh yeah, they're in Wisconsin. But no, this is another company anyway. Thundermax had hooked me up with him, and he wanted to sponsor that part of the build. But then when I told him, hey, this is the exhaust that we're running from Bassani, because that's the exhaust at the time Bassani wanted me to run to, you know, help market and promote it, right? But it's that really high output, big ass exhaust going on a 117, and homeboy that was going to design and do the cam, the motor things, he's like, I won't do it if you're running that exhaust. I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, it's like, well, my cam and all the stuff I'm doing is not going to perform the way that I know it will if you use that exhaust. And he's like, well, you can use this one. It wasn't because it was Bassani.
Yeah.
It was the fact that exhaust was designed for a higher or bigger displacement motor. You know what I mean? Which
is funny because, like, in my experience, like, Bassani exhausts aren't even the best. Like, a D&D and a Sawicki exhaust, both in my testing that I've done in the shop, have outperformed every Bassani exhaust, especially on the top end.
But that's kind of the thing. Is like it becomes the foreman aspect, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Rusty to death. I have a long history with him, and but I cannot stand the way D&Ds look or sound.
Yeah.
And
I love the way they sound. And I love the way they look on FXRs. I'm not going to lie. I love the FXR exhaust.
When we were talking about like the baggers and going into like the way that the performance bikes.
I don't like the one that performs the best on the Softail, their Borzilla or whatever. I don't like the way it looks. And it hangs so low, you lose ground clearance.
Yeah.
But then they have the Abuela one that I don't like the way it looks. Like it kicks up, so then it like points at the saddlebag.
Yeah.
And I don't think it has the same flow as the other exhaust, so then you're losing performance.
When you build, when someone's designing a badass car, like we're talking like the manufacturers, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot you can take from things like Ferrari and Lamborghini and the Italian brands there's a feeling to it, right?
Yeah.
If you completely make something based on function, then you get the feeling, but you don't. You feel it when you're in it, but you don't feel it when you see it.
Yeah,
and when
you don't feel it looking at it in a parking lot.
It's kind of like it's probably the worst analogy, but it kind of makes sense. A very, very unattractive woman that's got some really good, it's like, man, like when I'm in there, god damn, it functions, but the form is not doing it for me, right? So when you combine them both together is when you get the real fucking emotion or the real. Like it does.
It creates emotion everywhere because there is emotion when you use something.
Yeah.
But then there's emotion for someone who will never use it, but just sees it.
Yeah.
Sitting there. Mm-hmm. And if you don't gain that second emotion, then that's just function over form.
Yeah.
And like that's where I'm trying to it's going to be a struggle. Like I'm going to probably make mistakes and have to do a bunch of learning during this process because my brain instantly goes to, this works. Yeah, but maybe it doesn't.
Well, when you're building, I don't know, like certain bikes, they need to look like, if you're building a race bike, then it needs to look like a race bike.
Yeah.
But if you're building a bike to go inspire people to invoke an emotion, it needs to look the way you need to do. Not saying it doesn't need to perform. Like that's all important, but that's the hard thing about these levels, right? How do you make something that performs well and looks good? And, maybe you're like, fuck, man, I don't like the fact that using this exhaust, it doesn't get the horsepower I know I can get if I use that exhaust.
But I don't like the way that exhaust looks.
But now if I use that exhaust and this whole thing is like off, it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Well, that raffle bike that we're rebuilding, it's a twin cam motor on an FXR, and I really enjoyed the way that thunderheader sounded when I rode it back. Mm-hmm. But I didn't like the fact that the thunderheader was designed for an Evo, and there's you got to kick it way out one way or use certain type of gaskets that I'm not a huge fan of because they squish into the exhaust port, so they block your exhaust flow and all this stuff. So, I'm going to take a Bassani header pipe that's designed for a twin cam and then marry it to a thunderheader muffler so that I get a header system that fits with the motor. Yeah. Figure out a way to make it look right, but then with a muffler with the sound that I want and the look that I want. Because I like the way thunderheaders look and I like the way that they sound, but they just don't perform the way that I would like them to perform, and they don't fit that motor.
Where are we at?
2 hours and 23 minutes.
All right. Think about rip. We're fading over here.
You guys are struggling.
I'm still in the same clothes I wore. I woke up or I put on Friday morning.
That's basically where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Y'all had a rough weekend for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, I do appreciate you coming out. I wanted to kind of capitalize off you being a builder for this year's FXR Tour. The new shop, the new space, the rebranding.
We got a new logo now.
Rebranded logo. I love it.
Yeah.
And just
excited. We'll have shirts and stickers and hats and all that stuff soon. So.
Yeah. But yeah, if everybody check them out, Texas Performance MC, right?
Yeah.
Still, that's the
Texas
Instagram. So long. It's so long. It's so long. But no, man, I'm stoked to see all this going. I can't wait to start seeing some posts and, your ideas start to come to reality, or however reality is going to shape it, no, man, I'm stoked for you, man. I can't wait to see what comes of all this.
Appreciate it.
All right, bud.
Sounds good.